Blank check with Griffin and David. Blank check with Griffin and David. Don't know what to say or to expect. All you need to know is that the name of the show is Blank Check.
You don't get it, do you, Finch? In my job, what I'm paid to do, you're about as mysterious to me as a blocked toilet is to a fucking plumber. Reasons for doing what you did? Who gives a podcast?
Is it better or worse than your Goldblum?
I don't know. It's better.
It's
the answer is
same.
better.
It's
the answer is
maybe a
better.
little
I
better.
just proved it was better. Hi, everybody. My name's Griffin Newman.
I'm David Sims. I'm drinking a juice.
I'm drinking a vitamin water, and this is a podcast called Blank Check with Griffin and David.
Yes.
We are interested in filmographies, directors who have massive success early on in their career, and then given a series of blank checks to make whatever they want, their own crazy passion projects, and sometimes those checks clear, and sometimes they bounce. Baby.
Well done.
Just booking it. This is a miniseries on the films of Christopher Nolan.
Yes.
That's who we're covering right now. Old Chris Nolan. Lightning Chris.
Think he has
we
a
don't have a
nickname?
nickname yet. We'll come up with
Like
one.
you worked with Wally Pfister. Like, was he ever like, Chrissy, old
Yeah, he always called him
Knowles.
Chrissy. The podcast miniseries is called The Pod Night Casts.
Yeah, great title.
Who is the Pod Night? We will solve that by the end
Yeah, sure.
of this miniseries.
That's our overarching
That's the lingering
question.
mystery. We're getting back to the Phantom Podcast days where it's a mystery show.
Yeah.
An investigation.
Everybody's got a box. See,
Everyone's
that
got a
was my
box.
following reference for you.
Great. Everyone's loving this. And today we're talking about the movie Insomnia.
Yeah. Our guest hasn't talked yet, but I wanted to talk before we introduce him. That's
I know.
I was
That's
waiting for an introduction.
No.
Okay, sorry.
No. No, I made him feel uncomfortable.
Yeah. So
I was just following the sort of, protocol and
Right.
etiquette.
No, I don't like the etiquette.
we do things like Christopher Nolan here, baby. We do them out of order sometimes.
Ooh, that's smart.
Sometimes.
That's a good way to explain why I'm talking.
Exactly. We do them out of order, but then we explain why.
Sometimes. Do you want to say some more stuff, or should we introduce? I mean, now
Let's
I
introduce
feel
our
like
guest.
Okay,
We've got a great guest.
We said yes.
A fan of the show.
Fan of the show. A mutual friend of ours reached out and said, "Hey, would you want to have him on the podcast?" And I said, "Geez, Louise, yes."
I said, no way.
And then
No.
we fought,
No.
and then we agreed.
We're very excited to have you.
He's a writer and director. Films like The Color Wheel and Listen Up, Philip,
So good.
and your new movie Golden Exits.
Yeah.
Coming out this year.
Probably.
Awesome. Fingers crossed. Alex Ross Perry is here with us
Hey, Alex.
in the studio.
Yeah, I'm very excited to be here. I'm a huge fan, and when our mutual friend publicist said, I turned down a lot of things. I don't feel like doing interviews and stuff, and I said I really want to do this. He said, well, you don't talk about yourself. You don't promote anything. And I was like, yeah, I know,
That's the idea.
and I don't want that at all. I just want to sort of drop in on the conversation. And he was a little confused by that, but here we are.
Sure. Does our mutual friend want to be named, or should I keep him nameless? I just heard a story about him. That I want to share.
Is it the kind of story that's better to share if we don't name him?
No, it's fine either way. It's
I think you said Rob Shear, right?
No, well, I
okay.
only met Rob recently, but it's through Adam Kirsch at Brigade, who
Okay.
he
That's
works
right.
with.
That's right.
Gotcha.
Well,
Okay.
our mutual friend Pilot Veerwit, who's on our Warhorse episode, walked into a screening, and Rob Shear apparently just yelled, "I want to fuck that horse!" And Pilot was like, he's like, I love playing Jack. He had to anyway.
Right. Pilot had to be reminded of a conversation she had 6 months earlier.
Anyway, Alex,
I'm honored to be here, and I
We are
thank everyone
honored
for
to
helping
have you.
set it up.
Honor to have you here. Now,
Yeah.
we got to just address immediately the elephant in the room.
what's that?
You used to be a rival of ours at Videology Trivia, did you not? You would go to Videology Trivia
That's
sometimes.
true, yes.
Yes.
What was
It's
your
the
team
sort of thing
called?
that slowly gets sussed out listening to a lot of
Right.
Check episodes.
Mhm.
We were La Ventura Pet Detective.
Right, that was
Yes,
right.
of
That was
course.
a good one.
Like a routine, top 3 placing.
Oh yeah, no, you were the ones I feel like we feared the most.
Interesting.
Like,
Yeah,
week
I
to
feel like
week.
you were one of the Camp Mohawks when we first started going. Because when David and I we started going with Pilot. She had a team. Very slowly, the rest of that team stopped showing up because they were like, these guys aren't
immediately.
fun. They
It was
take
just
too
us two
seriously.
immediately. Yeah.
Right. So for a long time, it was just the two of us playing against like
Right.
5-6 person teams. And we'd look at that scoreboard and we'd be like, someday we're going
One
to
day
be
we'll
like
rise
La
up.
Ventura Pet Detective.
Yeah, it was like a 6-month run that we did before everybody got too busy.
Yeah, well, that's
It
sort of
can-
what happened to us. It gets tiring.
It gets tiring, and also it starts at 8, but someone has to get there at 6.
Ah,
Yeah, man.
And
please. Don't I know it?
the short straw of it sort of dragged out, but the sort of format of that and what I love about the show is the same kind of deep consideration and appreciation of movie ephemera.
Well, I feel like the main thing that drew me to that trivia night was the feeling of like, oh, I'm no longer the person in the room who thinks about this stuff more than anyone else.
Yeah.
You know, there was like a kind of flat playing field of like all of us spend too much time thinking about all of these details. And not just in like the basic kind of like movie nerd trivia way that people consider. But like, I think we've referenced it before, but there was that audio round that was just like movie studio fanfare.
I was just about to ask if you were there for that. Because I think about that all the time.
All the time. And like everyone in this room was like, this is something I've wanted to be tested on my entire life.
That was one of the most beautiful things.
It was
everyone
incredible.
just had their eyes closed, looking up at the ceiling, and you like suddenly you don't understand what you're like. Suddenly you can't figure out if it's this or that.
And there was. Did they include the Paramount DVD only?
It was the home video. I think it was even the VHS. Right, yes. Right, because Paramount used to not have music in their fanfare.
Because I remember us being like, oh, yeah, no, there is a Paramount fanfare. Like, you know, yeah.
But it was like the kind of fanfare you'd only know if you were big into like Paramount VHSs in the 90s.
Well, I also want to mention, you're a Blankie nominee, or at least your films are Blankie nominees. I definitely nominated Queen of Earth for a couple Blankies. I don't know if you've listened to the Blankie Awards.
I haven't listened to the awards episodes because I just get so into the miniseries.
Yeah,
if I knew that, I would have been more self-conscious.
Yeah,
I believe it was the year before our first Blankies, but Jonathan Pryce, Best Supporting Actor.
Oh, for sure.
Would have been a Griffey nominee for me.
Cool. He's my winner.
Really?
Yeah, him and Moss, both my winners that year.
Interesting. Well, I'll go back and listen to that, and I'll feel glad that I didn't know that before I came in. Yeah, I agree, and I take no credit for how good Jonathan Pryce or Moss is in that movie. They're so much fun. What a hero he is. Jonathan Pryce.
A hero.
You want to watch me get things on track?
Go right ahead. He's smiling like a fucking idiot.
Here's a thing I was thinking about.
Too venomous.
Here's the thing I was thinking about while watching Insomnia last night, which I think applies to you too. That like adage that like 70% of the job is casting.
Yeah.
The percentage changes, I feel like, depending on who recites it.
Uh-huh.
But the idea that like, you know, so much of a director's job is like hiring the right actors, you know? And I feel like you're someone who has very good taste in actors. Like when I see your movies, you can tell what kind of movie fan you are by who you cast in roles.
Yeah, hopefully. I mean, I remember Tarantino had some line once talking about Jackie Brown, which is something I hope we can talk about later in reference to bizarre third films that directors
Would love to talk
made.
About
Absolutely.
But he says there's some quote at the time where he said he only wanted to work with actors that were in movies made by his favorite filmmakers. So he was like, De Niro was in Greetings and Hi Mom, and obviously many other great movies, but I wanted to work with him because of how much I loved De Palma, and so on and so forth. And I always was like, yeah, you should just only work with actors that have worked with directors that you think are the best.
Well, and there's also this element, too, of, like, I feel like a lot of times, like, every year at Sundance, there's this thing that annoys me where you'll see, like, movies starring the people who were in the breakout Sundance movie from 2 years earlier.
Right.
And this sense of, like, you know, someone went to Sundance, and they were there as a filmmaker trying to get their first movie off the ground, and they see, like, Obvious Child, and then they're like, oh, Jenny Slate, and then they cast Jenny Slate in their movie because they saw someone else in a similar type of movie, like, make, you know?
Yeah,
make it. And I feel like when I always get excited is when I see a director who I feel like has a sense of curation of like they're hiring like actors that they love, that they've had their eye on for a long time, whether it's because they're in some of their favorite movies or worked with their favorite directors.
Yeah, and I feel like to veer back into I feel like Nolan is really good at that.
So good at that.
And you've always felt like from the 8 films in a row he's made with Michael Caine and his respect for that. And sort of post this movie, the company he's more or less put together of a big rotating assortment of actors, and Dunkirk certainly seems to take that to a whole new level.
For sure.
But this movie seems like to transition into casting, like like this was a crazy cast. This was like 3 actors pretty much in their prime, and watching it last night, I just remembered how big of a deal it seemed to be like, oh, Robin Williams just won an Oscar a few years ago.
Yeah. Hilary Swank had just won an Oscar.
Yeah.
And then there's like this legend in the movie, and it was just like, oh, this has to be a good movie because this is a great cast.
You know, Insomnia was Pacino's first movie in basically 3 years. Basically his first movie since Any Given Sunday.
I was wondering about that. Yeah. I didn't look anything up that I'm curious about in hopes that it would stimulate more conversation. I was wondering if this was like the last kind of like obviously serious, like
I agree.
This is the last great Pacino.
I mean, did you have any reason at this time to not take him seriously, or had he not done any?
Because 99 was Insider and Any Given Sunday, right?
Yeah, I really want to talk about Pacino because I do feel like this is big Pacino movie as well as it is, the things we want to talk about.
I think this was the last moment where he was kind of like a capital A great actor.
Well, I want to talk. Should we just talk? Because, look.
Let's talk about
I feel like after Scent of a Woman, the hit on him does become a little bit, in the because he took that long break between here, I've got it, Revolution and Sea of Love.
Right.
And then, he comes back and everyone's like, oh, he's gotten real big, and then in Heat, he's real big. I like him in these movies. In The Insider, he's real big. He yells a lot in The Insider.
Even though he was big, though, he did have this kind of respect.
No, absolutely.
He worked on serious movies. That's another thing.
He worked on serious movies. He's good in Donnie Brasco. He's good in Carlito's Way, obviously.
Right.
Which ends the same way as this movie.
Is it Donnie Brasco, Any Given Sunday, Insider? Is there anything? What is that?
If you want me to run down,
Devil's Advocate, too, right?
I
think that's the same year.
After Scent of a Woman, he wins his Oscar, right? So, Carlito's Way, 93.
And he should have won for Dick Tracy, but, he was overdue. The makeup.
Two Bits in 95. It's a James Foley movie I've never heard of. Which he plays grandpa. I don't know if that's Heat. City Hall in 96, the kind of movie you really don't make anymore about municipal parking scandals, starring Al Pacino and John Cusack. Then you got Donnie Brasco, which he's great in, but Depp definitely overshadows him. Pacino's kind of doing his thing. Depp's really good in that movie. Devil's Advocate, he's very big.
Is that 97 by
97.
But that's the kind of best slice of big Pacino.
For sure. Argue. The movie's not trying to be too serious, right?
And he's playing the devil, so
he is playing the devil.
And he's fun.
He's called John Milton.
It fits the tone of the film, and he's enjoyable to watch. That's your ideal Pacino ham.
And then
that's more like a Nicholson Joker, where it's just
right. Yeah. You're I'm here to see this.
Yeah. I'm riffing. It's a jazz set.
It's not wow, this performance is pretty pretty strange in this movie about the devil running a law firm.
It is weird that early 70s Pacino was his thing
so
he was
muted.
noted for was that he was quiet.
You see Scarecrow or whatever, he's mumbling and not talking to anyone.
And he had this very high-pitched voice. Most Sislak is based on Pacino.
Yeah.
Hank Azaria said. So that early come on, what
and then 99, just to continue running this down, he's got The Insider and Any Given Sunday. Any Given Sunday, again, there's a lot of screaming. That's a loud movie. In every way, editing-wise, it's a loud movie. Music-wise, it's a loud movie.
There is something interesting, though, that certainly with both The Insider and Donnie Brasco, there's a bit of a handoff thing.
Right, this is what I was about to say. He's getting overshadowed again.
He's letting younger stars
by this
transformation
performance. Both Depp and Crowe, it's they look different. They're, look at them act.
And Pacino's there to give the weight, and he gets first billing, but it's really but look at this guy.
He also still seems, up until this point, very director-centric.
Very
from
much
Carlito's Way with another De Palma, and then working with Michael Mann a couple times.
Yeah.
And Oliver Stone. He seems to actually care about who's making his movies.
For sure. That's absolutely.
This, although I would imagine he was probably involved with this movie.
Yes.
Before anybody else.
Because even Devil's Advocate is Taylor Hackford, who sucks, but he's respected.
No, but he's,
he's a respected hack.
Yeah. From Blood In, Blood Out.
I should mention also.
Exactly.
He also directs Looking for Richard in 96, which is a nice little movie. And he directs Chinese Coffee in 2000, which I've certainly never seen. Has anyone ever seen
None
that?
of those were available until they all came out in a box set 6 or 7 years ago.
There was a Pacino collection. People were like, what's going to be in this Pacino collection? Dog Day After... Oh, no, it's...
4 movies he directed
Chinese
about
Coffee.
acting.
Yeah, exactly.
And then he takes a little break, and then Insomnia. And in the same year, he had Simone, the Andrew Niccol movie, which was hyped. I remember that was people were like, this is an Oscar play.
And expensive. And he got $15 million for that movie. That was a big salary payday for him.
And then the next year, he's in The Recruit.
Right.
And then Gigli. That in 2003.
Yeah.
But also Angels in America, which he is very big in, but very good, and he wins an Emmy.
Well, that's the transition. Post Insomnia, he never gives a good performance in a theatrical movie again.
Right.
It's just HBO. He does weird movie work.
Because he does. There's that Merchant of Venice where he plays Shylock. That's very broad.
Hat on a hat. You don't need to see Pacino play Shylock. I can imagine that performance.
Two for the Money with McConaughey.
Yeah, where he says talons in the trailer.
88 Minutes with I don't know, Ben McKenzie.
Right, which I think, I remember just the most withering review of that movie was, they even got the runtime wrong. It's 94 minutes. They were close enough and they couldn't just trim an extra 6 off it.
He's in Ocean's 13, obviously.
Right, which is a weird role. And I remember him very dismissively saying at the time, They were like, "You excited about being in this movie?" And he's like, "It's always the ones that are the worst that pay you the most."
Oof.
Like he was kind of very backhanded about even being in the movie.
That, by the way, was a very good impression.
Thank you. I'm getting a little better.
I think it's like the quieter you go, the better you are.
It's the same as like the Michael Caine on the trip. There's like the loud one, which is funny, but if you can do the subtle one, the quiet one's much.
I think I can do quiet.
And this movie's all quiet Pacino.
Also, this movie, it is definitely like he's tapping into a Pacino we had not seen a lot of. Right, that's part of the appeal.
Right. I mean, what I think
there's like 2 moments where he's loud.
We'll get to it more, but there's some interesting factors I think to this performance.
Well, that's why I think this is a good Pacino movie because I think it is about him going like, look, I know I'm a bit of an old hack at this point because that's what his cop is,
right?
But also, like, aside from Michael Caine, it's the only like Nolan sort of older generation casting that I can think of. There's no like Nolan obviously as a student of
apart
history.
from like where he like digs up Tom Berenger or
Matthew Modine has him as a side
Modine or
piece.
Anthony Michael Hall, where you're like, why does he want some 80s like forgotten like?
But the difference is having
Rutger Hauer,
having and
Eric Roberts and one of the
It's crazy how many of them he unearthed.
But these are like he's not like getting the like.
He's not like I want to work with Nicholson.
He's not getting like Warren. Like he could probably get Warren Beatty's attention, or he's not doing anything
but
like
that. Falls into
I've always
what we
thought he should do
about.
a movie with Clooney. I mean, like that seems like the most obvious pairing in the world.
In this case, he seems to, which I forgot. Or didn't know ever that this was one of those Clooney Soderbergh movies.
When they were just buying up all these like Solaris and Insomnia and trying to do these remakes of like esoteric.
What was it called again? They're
Section 8.
Section 8. Right. Yeah.
I thought for a minute it was called K Street, but then I remembered that was
his HBO show.
I always used to get him confused.
He had 2 HBO shows because he had Unscripted as well or whatever. Yeah. Jeez, they were just lobbing content at us.
So I forgot that this was from that era where like you would just see in the way that now you'll always see like executive produced by Brett Ratner. You just used to always see executive produced by Clooney and Soderbergh.
Right. Now it's Steve Mnuchin and Brett Ratner throwing their name on all the Warner Brothers productions. That's when Warner Brothers was still like they taking these flyers on Soderbergh because he had that crazy year where he like won the Oscar and had $200 million movies. And then followed it up by
Ocean's 11.
They were like, this guy's tapped into the zeitgeist, and they were like, what do you want to make? The Good German. And they were like, I guess this is a blockbuster.
He would make Full Frontal, but he could get Julia Roberts to be in it. Right. So even if like it's flops, it doesn't matter. It'll still make a little bit of money.
So many things set up there.
But I just want to wrap up Pacino.
Sure.
Because I feel like 2008 when he makes Righteous Kill with De Niro,
which is John Avnet, the same guy who did 88 Minutes.
Yes, that was when everyone was like, forget. Like I'm not getting excited about either of these people being in a movie anymore. Right. Like it's not like they'll be bad every time, but you're not going to sell me on like De Niro's in a movie. Pacino, the two of them together, like after Heat, all the hype about them being together in Heat, to make that. Have you ever seen that movie?
Yeah, it's a disaster.
It's really not good.
I remember talking to my brother about like when that came out and being like, man, both those guys are cooked. And we were like, my argument to him was, yeah, but the difference is if De Niro's bad in a movie now, it just feels lazy.
Right.
When Pacino's bad in a movie, it feels like he's trying so hard that it makes you respect him less. In a way.
Yeah, no. Well, it's just Pacino since then.
Yeah.
He does these HBO movies.
He's got one.
He's got You Don't Know
Phil
Jack,
Spector.
Phil Spector, and I believe he has the Joe Paterno movie.
Which was supposed to be De Palma, but now it's not.
Right, now it's fucking Levinson again,
but,
right?
6 years ago it was supposed to be De Palma, and then De Palma said that guy who was the main villain on Project Greenlight is the reason that movie didn't happen.
Oh, interesting.
Oh, weird.
That guy who's like the exec on Project Greenlight, who like is giving all the approval for whatever and like loves the movie that they made. Yeah. De Palma's like, "Did you see that show? That's the guy that like made me not want to work in television."
But that's like his like trilogy of like Angels in America.
Yeah, let
You
me
Don't
play
Know Jack,
like the most hated
the
people
worst,
in America.
Right, and he gets his kind of like 80s auteurs to like direct them for him.
And he'll get his Emmy nomination and stuff.
Right.
But, I mean,
he gives one good theatrical performance.
Yeah, every once in a while.
Post Insomnia. I'd say
theatrical.
There's one really strong Pacino big screen performance post 2002.
Are you going to say Jack and Jill?
I'm going to say Jack and Jill. He's very good in Jack and Jill.
I've never seen it. I just know that he plays himself.
He is
me neither. Yeah,
very good in Jack and Jill. I'm not coming out here with hot takes. I'm not trying to argue Jack and Jill's good. He's really weirdly like locked in that movie.
I mean, honestly, when you're looking at his IMDb page, there's not a lot else to really, because it's like stand-up guys, The Humbling, Manglehorn, Danny Collins. Like he's churn out content that comes out in January.
I feel like the Manglehorn was David Gordon Green, right?
Yeah.
I feel like that like should have been.
It should have been.
I feel like it was even at Venice, maybe. Like
I think you're right. He plays Manglehorn for crying out loud.
It had all the makings of something that could have been decent as like a return to form, and just it can't get seen.
Well, that was.
And every time the poster is like Pacino looking fucking weird. He's got some hairdo. He
looks really
He's
weird
wearing
now.
like grandma glasses.
Well,
in
the poster-
Manglehorn, he's holding a cat.
But in
You're
front
like,
of a wall
what
of-
is this
a
movie?
wall of keys, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, there was this weird diptych that David Gordon Green did in between like studio comedies that was Joe and Manglehorn, where he was like, I'm going to take these once very respected actors who now have kind of become cartoonish parodies of themselves, look really weird, and try to make really stripped down character dramas with them. And both of those movies like almost work. They're not bad, but
Joe's
they're just like,
okay.
Yeah, and Manglehorn's okay.
He's a good director. I mean, he makes like sort of sometimes you're more just thinking like, what? Why'd you make this? Like, why was this the script you wanted to do? Or, I don't know.
I just feel like both of those movies, I think those actors especially were hoping that they were like tender mercies. Like, here's your comeback, you know, here's like a sparse character drama that like brings you back into the pocket.
So just to wrap, here's what he's got coming.
Okay.
Number one, he's got The Irishman, the new Martin Scorsese movie. He's playing Jimmy Hoffa in The Irishman, the $100 million Netflix movie.
Right.
Also, something called Hangman, directed by someone called Johnny Martin. I don't know him. Alex, I'm sure you haven't heard of Johnny Martin. Co-starring Carl Urban and Brittany Snow. A homicide detective teams up with a criminal profiler to catch a serial killer whose crimes are inspired by the children's game Hangman. So that's what we got with Pacino, I feel like.
I'm going to throw out a hot take.
That's sort of the shit sandwich.
Yeah. Hot take, Pacino should not play cops ever again. If you tell me Pacino's playing a cop in a movie, I'm out. At this point, I'm out.
Like, how crazy would it be? How surprised would you be if you heard they're reviving Law & Order, Dick Wolf is reviving Law & Order, like the original, and it's Pacino?
I would not be surprised.
It wouldn't be that surprising.
And it would be boring. It would
probably
exciting
be a little
to
boring.
watch.
But so that's what's interesting about Insomnia is it does have that vibe a little bit where they're like, let's bring in the old cop, and it's Pacino. And everyone's like, oh, you know, right? Like everyone around him is like, oh, you're the legend.
Well, a couple factors I think are interesting. One, the character's very different in the original Insomnia.
Okay, so Griffin watched the original Norwegian movie.
Humble brag.
The Eric Skuldaberg.
Right.
I don't know.
He who went on to Prozac Nation.
Oh.
Right.
Yeah.
The movie is very similar in plot. All the major incidents are the same.
And
all
it's set in like the Arctic Circle or whatever.
Right,
yeah.
right. But it's a novelist, it's a teen girl, all the sort of details, the plot events happen in the same kind of way. The characterizations are very, very different. It's like a dirtier movie, it's a grimier movie, it's a much smaller movie, it's less emotional. But the big thing is, in the original, it's Stellan Skarsgård, who's a great actor, but is much
he's the cop.
Younger.
Yeah,
seems like a kind of virile in his prime cop. And he's a little disgraced. The thing is that they caught him sleeping with a key witness in a case. So he used to be a big city cop, and now he's relocated to like the middle of nowhere.
He's not brought in as like the outside expert the way Pacino was here.
Sure,
he's not brought in.
He's just been shuffled over to Trump.
Right.
So, yeah.
He's a little kind of like on the back of his heels, and he's not revered in the same kind of way.
That's interesting because I did question halfway through the movie if the movie had done enough to establish why this cop was brought in from L.A. all the way to Alaska to solve something.
It does absolutely nothing to establish it. It's crazy. This is like a 100-person town in Alaska.
There are two lines.
He's an L.A. cop.
When he first meets Paul Dooley, he says something like, "Yeah, Joe, do me a
Right,
favor."
they're like old friends.
Right, like the guy asked him to do it. And the other thing is I think he just wants to get the fuck out of L.A. because he doesn't like what's going on.
Well, I think the idea is the LAPD wanted him out because they're investigating him. So they're like, yeah, sure, go
but they even
consult
sent
on
him
this
with
case.
his partner.
Like, but they send his partner. His poor partner has to go to night mute.
It's the sweatiest part of the movie. Because in the original, it's like, oh, Skarsgård wasn't relocated to this small town, but he's in a town adjacent enough that they were like, hey, would you mind go checking on this murder case? In Insomnia, it's like, hey, do you want to board a 8-hour flight?
Yeah, right.
To team up with Hilary Swank? And the Hilary Swank type character in Insomnia is not, they don't have the same kind of relationship where she's as sort of green and idolizes him to the same kind of degree.
That's interesting too, to learn that in the world of detective work, there's like book reports and she's like, I wrote my dissertation on you.
I love that.
Yeah.
I love that she's like a cop nerd.
Yeah, but there's not a lot done with that. It's just a way to sort of explain that there's like a secret this guy has that she at some point wrote a book report on.
But it also it's an interesting counterpoint to this cop who's just so idealistic and in love with the world of solving crime.
Yeah. Look, I think Swank's good in the movie. I mean, she, to me, has the Robin Wright Penn role in Unbreakable, where you're like, she's doing a great job, but she's got like half a character.
Yeah,
right?
I have a lot of thoughts on her character in the Nolan filmography of women characters.
Yes.
I also wanted to hopefully talk about how this movie comes for Nolan and where you guys are at with thinking that because he's such a good subject, I think, for a series. And this, I think, is so far away from where he gets a blank check. And this to me is like, that's why I raised my hand about this movie, because I hadn't seen it since it came out. I had basically no memory of it, and love the guy so much now, and thought this was just like a weird movie.
It's a weird turning point too, because we were saying, you know, following Memento and Insomnia are all like neo-noir crime movies. They're all starring adults. They're all pretty grounded, you know?
He was almost just like the neo-noir guy.
Right. And then the next movie is Batman, and he becomes the epic guy.
They're all spins on neo-noir. Like with Memento, it's like a neo-noir, but the guy can't remember anything. Insomnia, it's neo-noir, but the sun never goes down. So it's like a reverse noir, right? Like he's doing like a little tweak every time.
Right, but it seemed like this was gonna be his like patina, and there's this leap of like, okay, following $6,000 and he makes it with his friends. Then he gets to make a movie with real actors for like a pretty small budget, and it blows up, and everyone goes like, okay, this is the guy. And then he makes this like $40 million Warner Brothers like big
nice looking
studio
Oscar
movie.
winners top to bottom.
Right, right.
And also but also importantly, I think from my interest, like he lands this job.
Yes.
Yeah.
Like this was something that came across because after Memento, people were like,
well, I want to...
What do you... Like now you would go from Memento to Batman.
Right. And instead
totally.
there used to be this intermediary step.
Well,
and there also used to be these intermediary movies.
Right.
He lands this movie after Memento has come out in Britain, but before it's come out in America.
Interesting. But I guess it had already done festivals.
Yeah, it was obviously a hot movie, but he filmed this movie from April to June 2001. Like, and Memento came out in like March 2001.
Yeah.
So obviously it was kind of probably a little like Trevor or whatever. It was like they knew he had another movie in the can before they...
Memento came out in the spring of 2001?
Came out March 2001.
Was it at Sundance in 2001?
I think it was.
I'm going to look it up for you right now.
While you do that, can I say a full disclosure that I know Chris Nolan and his wife a little bit?
Interesting.
And they're very great people and have done good, have helped me ever so slightly.
Interesting.
Tell us more.
Helped you move? Helped you?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just like been supportive. I met him.
He owns a U-Haul. You didn't know that.
Yeah. He does everything.
Do they live in LA or are they like
They're
based
in
in London? Right.
Okay.
I met him because I moderated a panel at Sundance about shooting on film with him, Colin Trevorrow, and cinematographer Rachel Morrison.
Okay.
And part of the setup for that was that every one of these moderators watched a movie of mine, and I talked with them on the phone for like 2 hours before Sundance. So at some point, I just got a phone call that was like, "Hello," and I was like, "Please hold for Chris Nolan."
Damn.
And I was just like,
which movie did he talk to you
He watched Queen
about?
of Earth and had like just watched it, I guess, in a screening room, and had all these questions about like the sort of filmic texture of it, and asked if we'd like printed our titles optically and other great compliments.
Sure.
And then we did this panel, and the experience of being around him, like in public, is really exciting, as you can probably imagine.
He is one of those directors who's become like visually iconic in and of himself.
Right, which I also am excited to talk about because at this point, he's like a studio gun for hire.
Right.
And like by 2 years ago when I did this thing, there's like a security detail around him when he walks into a room full of nerds.
Well, I remember when like
so this is before Interstellar, or
no,
had it just come out?
Last January.
Okay, so Interstellar had come out. Right.
When Inception came out, there was that running meme about the fact that DiCaprio is styled so much like Nolan in that movie, which that joke wouldn't have legs if the mainstream public didn't know what Christopher Nolan looked like.
That's also an important thing. Like he's become a celebrity without coveting any press. He's not like
it's true. He's
not like the kind of director that would be on a talk show.
It's from like featurette interviews, but those featurette interviews, like everyone fucking watched because there was this immediate like cult that sprung up around him trying to figure out like this guy's making movies differently than everyone else. It feels like.
And Memento. So was it at Sundance?
Yeah. So I'm going to give you the rundown. It actually debuted in the Venice Film Festival in 2000, and then so it did like Deauville, it did Toronto in 2000.
So he's locking down the Insomnia deal while it's on this festival.
I assume so, and then it's at the 2001 Sundance Film Festival, and comes out in America. It had already come out in Britain last year. I saw it in Britain, as we discussed on the previous episode that we haven't recorded yet, and it comes out March in America, and of course it's this surprise hit.
Yeah,
I mean.
We'll talk about this in the previous episode.
Right, but just to like contextualize that at this time he's not iconic. He was just like, he made a movie that blew people's minds.
But I remember by the time that Insomnia came out, the fact that it was from the director of Memento, even if he wasn't like name brand, was like, that's a guy everyone's paying attention to now to see if the Memento guy can replicate it.
Yeah, that's certainly why I saw it opening weekend and was very excited, especially if it came out a year later.
Yeah. It came out a year later in America and came out... sorry, when did it come out? It came out
May. I remember it was
May
a summer
2002.
release.
We will get to the box office.
That shocks me, and I'm excited.
It is crazy.
That's another throwback. Is like this movie was like a $40 million studio movie starring 3 Oscar winners.
And it was billed as like Academy Award winner Pacino, Academy Award winner Williams,
what
Academy
I was
Award
going
winner
to say, on
Swank.
the Blu-ray box, they do this thing where they simplify it and they just say Academy Award winners and then have the 3 names underneath it, which is such a fucking
it's a brag.
boss move to just go like, we don't have anyone above the title who doesn't have hardware.
I don't think I've ever seen that before. I like that.
I was really impressed with
It's a rare feat. I mean, yeah.
It's also the theatrical poster was just like floating heads and dark. It was like a very studio crime movie.
Swank in full,
right?
Like crouching by the body or something, or maybe it's Pacino actually crouching by the body.
No, because it's big Pacino head with sunglasses.
Well, no, but I think it is. Pacino's on it twice, like Pacino and then Pacino with sunglasses, and then in opposite profile you got Rob Will.
The Blu-ray cover is like one of the few times I've ever seen, like not Criterion, but a studio so greatly improve the image for their movie in the home video release. The Blu-ray cover is just Pacino in the fog with the gun and Robin Williams' silhouette behind him.
Yeah,
it's like really good.
But
it was a summer release. They weren't like, this is an Oscar play.
Film he hadn't written, we should know. Yes. This is the only film he ever directed that he had no credited hand in.
I was watching the credits, leaning on the edge of my seat because I didn't know that. I was like, I wonder if there's a writing.
They said I think he did a rewrite on it before he took on, but he has no credit.
But even just that, like, it was a script that existed and it was also based on another movie.
Right, based on another movie. It was written by Hilary Swank, whose only other credit is Eagle Eye.
Interesting.
The Shia LaBeouf, Michelle Monaghan joint.
But you have to imagine, like, you know, the original film comes out in 97. Warner Brothers buys the remake rights. They hire someone to write it. They have scripts in development for a little while.
And it's kind of like a precursor to the Nordic crime thriller that, like, becomes so popular in the, next few years.
But this was probably a property that was kicking around within Warner Brothers, trying to make some version of it. And then here's the hot guy. Here we got a couple huge actors attached to it. The movie's ready to go. It was an Oscar play. It was like, this is a smart summer thriller for adults.
Thriller with Pacino. Yeah, it's a
and it did fairly well.
Did good. We'll get to that.
And then led to this crazy success. But I feel like it's kind of weirdly the most forgotten Nolan movie.
I mean, that's why I was so excited about picking it, just because it's so not. And also, like, having just watched it, there's no reason for that. No, it's not like it's the forgotten one because, like, it's not like his Big Trouble where he just like came in after someone got fired. Right. It's like, he made this movie, he nurtured it, he has like the same crew as he worked with before.
It's the Memento crew. It's David Julian did the score, Wally Pfister shot it, Dodie Dorn edited it. It's like the same Memento team. Yeah.
So it is like a true Nolan thing, but there's just something about it that, like, between Memento and Batman, it's so easy to forget about.
Well, it's also, this is the movie where the Nolan house style, I feel, really solidifies because of the budget, because of the sort of the scale of everything, the prestige of everything, the sort of meticulousness. Memento is obviously much more like a down and dirty production. He uses that to his advantage. But like stylistically, Batman Begins is far more similar to Insomnia than it is to Memento. But people make that Memento jump because Memento, in terms of narrative, is very Nolan.
Sure. Well, yeah, of course. But I mean, also, this is the last film he makes that is not genre, in some way. Obviously, it's a detective movie, so it is that. But, every movie makes sense either as like sci-fi or
he's doing a twist on a larger genre rather than just staying within this noir patina.
Although, obviously, he brings gritty realism to genre, I guess, is what he does. That's his thing.
That's his fingerprint.
Well, what do you think of the movie, Alex?
We
never even said what we thought of the movie.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I hadn't seen it in 15 years, and I thought it really held up. Yeah. And it's just totally solid. It's this is the kind of movie that is TV now.
I was about to say. It's almost hacky to say, but it is.
You almost kind of alluded to the killing and like Nordic crime.
Yep.
It's like this movie feels a lot like what True Detective feels like at its best, I suppose.
Sure.
And I think that's kind of shocking because, like, the $40 million studio movie doesn't exist, especially the non-gimmick driven one.
Right. And starring, someone
nothing
like
but Oscar winners.
Yeah.
And this style has just sort of moved away from theatrical filmmaking. I don't really know if this movie has anything to do with that. but like it's the kind of movie that I appreciate has a beginning, middle, and an end. Like, can you imagine watching Pacino try to piece this together for 7 hours?
Well, and also, right, I actually like that about it, and I had kind of forgotten that about it because it had been so. I don't think I've seen this since I saw it in theaters, maybe one time. That it's a murder mystery where the murder is not that mysterious and gets solved pretty quickly. Like, an hour in tops.
It's a character story, really, centered around a murder mystery, but he puts it together very fast.
Yeah, there's two suspects, and one of the suspects, Pacino's like, this kid didn't do it.
It becomes a morality tale. I mean, that's what the movie really becomes.
Yeah, no, for sure. It's about a man in purgatory or something, right? Like in a weird sort of like tormenting landscape.
Yeah.
I mean, we'll talk about it, but like that shot of him under the logs, that's the one
which
I think
is great. That's one of two amazing. I mean, there's that sequence
really
and the initial one in the fog.
The
fog scene's terrific.
Those are incredible, and there's no question that people saw those and were like, this guy's going to be an amazing visual filmmaker. Let's see what else he can do, because those sequences are representative, to me, of so much more than what this movie needed to be enjoyable.
First, absolutely right. Those are especially, I mean, the fog, obviously you need, that's crucial to, the actual plot mechanics, but the things like the logs, that's not something you necessarily, the weird log chase that immediately just turns into him like being like trapped and tormented under this little prison of like logs bashing together. Like, and also, it's just a cool idea.
I'll say this too, like from having worked with Pfister, I think the thing that like united the two of them that made their partnership so strong, like Wally like hates cheating on anything.
Sure.
And
we should mention, like, Wally Pfister had not done anything before Memento.
It was like a huge, huge step up.
And in between Memento and Insomnia, he did Scotland, PA. Like,
right.
So it's like, it's not like Wally Pfister's
It was like a lot.
He's like Maura Tierney's guy for a run.
He was just, him and Tierney were just like.
If you wanted Maura Tierney and you wanted to get into Sundance, you had to hire Wally Pfister.
Remember Scotland? Pennsylvania.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Directed by her husband, I believe.
Billy Morissette.
Yeah.
I'm mostly familiar. There was a poster for that somewhere at NYU.
Okay.
With the spatula?
Yes.
Yeah. I just remember that was that the turn of the, that 2000 Let's Update Shakespeare run with like 10 Things I Hate About You and O.
Bad Company based soundtrack.
Yeah, right.
No, Wally had like only done like B sci-fi movies and had done a lot of like Playboy videos and stuff like that, and then had been like a C or second unit or things like that on bigger things. But then Memento was really the breakthrough, and then this is the movie where for the first time he has like a budget to create these images with Nolan, and he's just like not faking light sources, not cheating on angles, trying to do stuff for real as much as possible, which is obviously an aesthetic that like Nolan shares, and you just feel that with this movie in terms of like. The color palette of this movie is really, really interesting to me because I feel like a lot of people would have tried to like go kind of like scrubbed out and desaturated, especially with this whole like, okay, these white skies. But I like that the rest of the movie is kind of really colorful.
Yeah.
In terms of what people are wearing and the set dressing and all of that.
As like a daytime movie, it's so like unnecessarily complicated. The entire movie looks like just like heinously hazy 10:30 in the morning.
Right.
And
it's a good easy trick that he's pulling. Like every time you're like, oh right, it's nighttime. Like it's such an easy trick to pull. Like and it works so well. It's so unnerving at a certain point.
So unnerving, yeah. And this is the first movie where like they have the money and the time to like get everything they want, and to be able to be like, what's the best version of this sequence, the best version of this shot, which I think you see like. This is how people get blank checks, is when they're given money and the studio sees them spend every single dollar, every single cent well.
This is a Warner Brothers movie, we should say, and they're the ones who make Batman Begins. And
he's been at Warner Brothers. Do you feel like Batman Begins is a blank check? Or do you feel like that's landing a bigger, more high-profile job than this?
Yeah,
Griffin kind of has a take, I think.
I think this was kind of a test. Like, I think Memento ended up being like, okay, let's see what he can do. And then Insomnia was a test to see if you can, like, play in the studio big leagues. And then when he, like, surpassed their expectations on that test, Batman Begins is, like, the weird blank check test.
But Inception, to me, is the real blank
That was
check.
my thinking. Yeah. Which is weird, because that's, like, many movies into a career that started very strong with movie number 2.
Right.
It's absolutely.
And
of
wait
course,
that long.
Every movie has sort of, apart from The Prestige, I think, has sort of tipped him into greater success. But Inception is the kind of thing where I mean, that's why he gets to make whatever he wants, right?
Yeah, the thing that's big about him, though, is that, like, he's got this crazy quiet confidence and is so exacting and knows exactly what he's trying to do. And everyone says he's this amazing communicator, that whoever he's talking to, department head, actor, he can convey exactly what he wants in, like, a sentence without any sort of wiggle, you know? Not, like, in a demanding dictatorial way, but just, like, here's exactly what it is. And it just tracks. And so you just imagine if you're at like Warner Brothers and this 31-year-old guy comes in and he's made 2 movies that exceeded what they should have been and is able to very succinctly explain to you what he wants to make. You just go like, I guess we should give this guy a shot.
Batman.
Right. Like he's getting like blank checks with like a lot of stipulations. Like they're like, here's a check. We might take it back from you if this doesn't work out well.
That was what I mean. I feel like we're not really talking so much about the movie, which
we'll take
is sad because I love when you guys do that.
We're gonna
But it is interesting to think like this was just a job. Like Clooney and Soderbergh had this movie. He made this movie. Batman's obviously something they were looking to do. It's not like when he walked in and was like, what are you guys doing with Batman? They were like, I don't know nothing. Because they had been trying to make Batman movies
so
for years.
many aborted attempts. Like
Right,
they kept
there
on
was the
hiring writers and
Aronofsky.
directors.
Right, they're just looking for like whoever's going to be the guy that says the thing about Batman that makes
it
sense
click.
now. And his ability to do that is kind of amazing. But even still, he's like he's still just doing these other things.
Yeah.
And that you mentioned Aronofsky. Thinking about this movie, I was thinking a lot about Aronofsky because I feel like Nolan, super smart, makes this movie, plays their game.
Sure.
Does a really good job with it, by my opinion, and I assume.
I love this movie.
Yeah.
I even said that. I full stop love this movie.
Him doing a good job with this and then getting a bigger job and doing a very good job with that eventually leads him to Inception, whereas Aronofsky basically makes his Inception, which is The Fountain, immediately after
Too early.
his equivalent of Memento,
which
is like this small breakout movie that blew teenage Alex's mind. And then they're like, what do you want to do? And he wasn't like, well, what scripts do you have? Which Nolan seems to have said. He was like, I've got this thing. It's the craziest idea. Now's my chance to make it. And then that set him back big time.
Well, it took him just like 7-8 years to make it. He didn't make, anything for a while, I think. Right? There were 6 years between Requiem and Fountain.
I think it's 2000 to 2006.
Yeah.
That sounds right. Fountain definitely came out when I was in college. It's 2000 to 2006.
But Nolan was very deliberate.
But The Fountain had all these problems, right? Where like a star left it. It
was Brad Pitt and Kate Blanchett. They left really soon before they were going to start filming.
And then he freaked out, and there was like a graphic novel, and he was like, maybe this is the only thing we get from The Fountain. And then it was like, no, he's making The Fountain. He makes The Fountain, and it was like people were like, what the fuck was that? Like people were one of those movies where people were angry about it.
But I mean, he also was like in the mix for a Batman movie, and instead he was just like
year one pitch.
Instead he was just like, I'm going to do my thing. I have my great Fountain idea. And Nolan was just like, well, let's take these meetings at Warner Brothers and see what they've got and see what I can do with their properties and learn how to make like the $200 million movies I already want to make.
Right, because I feel like Inception was his Fountain, and he just kept holding it back. Because even The Prestige,
he had Inception as like a concept in '99. He said, and he had sold it to Warner Brothers earlier, but they like weren't ready to make it yet.
We'll get to Inception.
Right, yes. But that is interesting because Aronofsky was the guy who came closest to making Batman post Schumacher. He was the take that they were the closest on. He was attached for a long time, and I think they ultimately thought it was too weird what he was trying to do. And Nolan just was like very deliberate and patient. Let's dig into this movie. I really want to talk about this
one
movie.
more question. Did Nolan talk about Insomnia to you?
No.
Right.
I'm sure if I'd asked, he would have.
Right. I just wanted to know if he had any, like, because it certainly is the movie he talks about the least.
Now I kind of wish I had, or like, some point could sort of just get the read on. But I imagine there's pride in it. I mean, it certainly is uncompromising. It doesn't feel like it's his, like, the studio kind of, had their own ideas. And you can see when you watch that movie, it's not mine. And you look at it and you're like, oh, yeah.
No, it's Nolan.
It doesn't feel that way at all.
It has that visual trick that he used a lot in Memento of the rapid cuts, to flat, like sort of surreal looking imagery that are flashbacks that you're eventually going to put together, like the blood, spreading on the cloth, and
But especially compared to the original, this movie feels very Nolan-y. It's not just like, okay, just do an American version of that film.
Right.
Everything he adds to it is very distinct.
But it is also a Pacino movie.
It's a very Pacino movie. Okay.
Oh, wait, Ben, how you doing? If you want anything, just tell me and I'll swing the mic over.
Oh, I'm good, thanks. You guys are so smart.
Ben doesn't have a microphone.
Hey, Ben.
Yeah, what's up?
Come on. You're our finest film critic.
I know, and Yeah.
The producer, Ben.
It's true.
You're the Ben-ducer.
Yeah.
The pro-doer, Ben.
Okay, you're right. You're cheering me up.
You're the Haas.
Yeah.
Mr. Positive.
Mm-hmm.
Mr. Positive. The tiebreaker birthday Benny. You're the meat lover. You're the fart detective.
He just looks at me when he does this,
You're the fuck master.
Yeah.
Come on, people don't call you Professor Crispy.
They can't.
But they wish you a hello fennel.
Yeah, please do.
Graduate to certain titles over the course of different miniseries.
Yeah.
Producer Ben Kenobi. Kylo Ben.
Yep.
Ben Say. Ben Night Shyamalan. Say Bennything. Alien Benz with the dollar sign. Warhaz.
Right.
Come on, have some pride.
All right, you did it. Anything else, Ben?
Now. Okay. No.
Great. Okay.
Thanks,
cool.
Ben.
So Insomnia.
Let us know. Just give me a tap, Ben, and I'll swing over. Insomnia. All right, I'm going to run down the plot of Insomnia. It's set in Nightmute, Alaska.
Ooh.
It's a real town, but I think is not an Arctic town.
How ironic.
I think they just like the name. It's a good name.
Night mute, more like day mute, because it's never night in this movie.
Sure, because it's the
So
summertime.
well, it's not ironic because they mute night. So there is.
Oh,
It's actually.
Wow, Alex just schooled you.
Wow.
In
It didn't occur to me when
ironic
watching the movie.
town
but-
names.
Wow.
And it's the halibut capital of the, Martin Donovan really likes ripping on that in his 10 minutes of screen time.
And as my wife looked up, filmed in British Columbia, not Alaska.
Right,
She said this
mostly
movie
filmed in
doesn't look
British
like
Columbia.
Alaska.
Yes, it has these gorgeous landscapes. They're very green and like very pretty.
I promise I'm not going to keep on doing this, but I think this is an important distinction. Martin Donovan dies at the 30-minute mark in this movie.
Sure.
In the original, his partner dies like 15 minutes in.
Okay.
And the partner is the older, more seasoned guy.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
Not the sort of idealistic younger dude, you know?
Martin Donovan is actually pretty good because he strikes me.
Really
he's
good
not like anything in particular. He's a little prickly. He's a little bit of an asshole, but he's okay.
Yeah.
And it's not like
The
he's
actor or the character?
Oh, the character. I mean, the way like he's not playing him as someone who hates or looks up to Pacino exactly. He's kind of like respects him, probably knows he's a little fucked up. Like, right? I mean,
I like that the movie doesn't
stack the deck.
It doesn't do any legwork to establish their relationship.
Right.
There's no like introduction to how they work together. They just show up together, and that's it. And they're just partners. And
they're like, they talk to each other and stuff.
Yeah.
Right?
But it's also just good casting because, like, Martin Donovan's just a really fucking solid actor.
Yeah.
And he shows up and he's comfortable on screen. And he just, like, he immediately, there's a sort of, like, welcome, sort of, like, warning quality with him where you just, like, hit the ground running and you're like, okay, I'm buying this guy in scene with Pacino. He seems like a cop. Like, this movie can just start moving along.
You also have a real sense that this guy's not in the whole movie.
yes.
That is true.
You know right off the bat that it's not Pacino, Williams, Swank, and Donovan. And he's
they
just
could have pulled a trick, I guess, and cast name an Oscar-winning actor. I don't know.
like even not remembering the
Robert
plot of the movie, I knew this guy was either going home or something was happening to him.
So they are LAPD detectives. Will Dormer, that's Pacino's character, and Hap Eckhart. Eckhart, yes. They've been sent to Alaska.
Hap Eckhart is the coppiest name I've ever heard.
It's quite a cop named Hap.
Hap Eckhart.
They've been sent to Nightmute because the police chief, Paul Dooley, knows Will.
Hey, do me a favor. Come investigate this murder.
He was like an LAPD guy, and then he was like, all right, packing up, going back to Nightmute.
When Al Pacino walks into the room, and he's got sunglasses, and he's got the leather jacket on, and his weird Pacino hair and makeup.
Yep.
He's like, hey, we're from L.A., you're like, this is an LA cop. And when Paul Dooley's like, we used to work on the force together. It's like, you never lived in LA. Paul Dooley, you have been in Nightmare, Alaska your entire life.
I love Paul Dooley.
I do too.
He's a great actor.
This is the thing I was talking about. Like, okay, you got 3 big Oscar winners in this movie. Like, you could give Nolan credit for working with them well, but the studio probably wanted those people. But Nolan's real, fingerprint in terms of casting comes from, the below the line, Dooley, Cat,
Yeah, Nicky Cat for sure.
More attorney. These are just really good
That mustache.
actors.
5-time Emmy Award winner Jonathan Jackson
is really good in this.
I just like noting that he has 5 daytime Emmys.
Daytime Emmys, yeah.
Anyway, there was a girl has been murdered.
Mm-hmm.
Twin Peaks style. A 17-year-old girl was beaten to death. And they have to solve the murder.
And Pacino's like, let me see the body. He goes in there. He immediately just fucking nails it. You see this guy's the best goddamn detective.
And Nicky Cat's all like, I did the report, right? He doesn't like that Pacino wants to see the body.
Nicky Cat, maybe Hollywood's most underrated scoffer.
He scoffs a lot in this movie.
If you need someone to just be kind of just a simmering irritation. at what the main character's doing.
I think the mustache is just, that's the decision they all made, and it was such a good decision.
It's such a good decision.
Because you just look at this guy and you're like, right, this is what he decided to do. Every day he's like, got to keep the mustache perfectly trim.
Well, especially because this is this thing I love about Pacino being in this movie. Is like, here's this weird, quiet, like kind of character study movie about a guy breaking down in every sense, right? Breaking down physically, psychologically, his whole set of morals and everything. But Pacino's kind of treating this to a degree like it's just him doing another cop movie. So, like, you could tell he came in with, like, this is how I'm going to dress.
Sure.
This is how I'm going to play some of these scenes in terms of the movements. He does a little bit of his, like, Pacino kind of, like, swagger shit sometimes. So it's, like, halfway in between, like, Sea of Love and something like, you know, The Insider.
Yeah.
But the movie contextualizes that so well by being like, he's this LA cop, he's the hot shot, everyone like respects him. Hilary Swank studied him, and now you're just going to see him fucking crumble. So it plays into the fact that it's like, Pacino's a little too old to be like getting away with acting like this.
Sure. I get
but
you.
The movie's kind of on the same page.
What do you think, Alex?
I mean, his sort of like introduction to the town is really simple, and I think that, I mean, he is kind of doing the thing you're describing. I don't know if I have much more to say about that.
I like his mumble. It's just like,
it's the quiet Pacino, and his like disintegration into like illness is really interesting and kind of believable.
I agree, because it's not too pronounced.
Like he really feels sick and tired.
It's kind of like Hanks's cold in Bridge of Spies, where it's like, you know, like, yeah, I get this guy's tired without him going like, like every scene or whatever. He's just, his eyes, I mean, right? It's the best way to put it. He just looks fucking weary.
Like if it wasn't the point of the movie, you would be like, man, he's just like, someone's like feeding lines to him. Like someone's just like feeding lines to him through an earpiece. He is like asleep at the wheel. But because it is the point, he kind of has an excuse to like just not seem like he's paying attention in any scene.
Yeah, it's actually right. It's a good, that's probably why the movie is a good Pacino movie in a sea of kind of mediocre Pacino performances.
Well, and when people do their like modern day Pacino impression, they do a lot of that of like squirming around in the chair and like not making eye contact and like mumbling stuff under their breath. This idea that he's like trying to do this almost like kind of Brando, I don't want to be on camera thing. And this movie like uses that to like, this is just him fucking being off the rocker. There's this, it was in like the last couple weeks of David Letterman doing his show when Pacino came on to do like a guest top 10. And he wandered in with like the 7 scarves on and the hair adding like an extra 12 feet of height onto his head. Just being like, yo, Dave, I always want to do the top 10. And then the bit is he doesn't feel like he can deliver the joke, so he's asking Letterman if he can just read the numbers. So Letterman still does the jokes, and Pacino reads the numbers. And Pacino reads the numbers as if they're like Shakespeare text. Like he gives them all these like weird actor twists.
Sure.
But there's one of them where Letterman forgets the bit, and it's clearly a real moment, not a planned moment. But the camera's on Pacino, and they're ready for Pacino to go like, number 6 or whatever. And Letterman forgets the bit and just says number 6 himself instead. He says it himself, and the audience kind of goes, "Aww." And there's this shot of Pacino just deflating, and he kind of looks around and like he's a confused old man who doesn't remember where he is anymore and can't remember if he was supposed to say the 6 or not.
This is grim.
And that moment is like exactly how Pacino plays being tired the rest of the movie, which is just like, was I supposed to say 6 or not? I can't remember anymore.
Oh, I say that. Yeah, no.
It just feels like actual senility.
Sounds like something I'd say.
Yeah, right.
He has a big ring in the movie too,
Big
like
ring.
a sort of like
which is definitely
Johnny Depp
Pacino
style
thing.
ring.
I think his whole styling in this movie was like he brought his team in and was like, "This is how I'm dressing."
Like
there was no
like
negotiation.
a leather jacket somewhere between the waist and the knees, but like not a trench coat and not a real coat either.
Right. I don't think Nolan was allowed into any costume meeting for Pacino's character. Right. I think Pacino just said, "Here's what I'm doing."
But it's also interesting that like, as you're saying, like especially at this time, there could be like a Pacino Robin Williams movie that is just nothing but like ham-fisted, idiotic performances.
Right.
And they're both as far away from that as I think they could possibly be at this point.
Yeah.
I mean, we'll get into Williams, who I think is terrific in this movie.
Okay. Pacino also has the weird scar on his neck in this movie, which they never address.
They talk about it.
Oh,
Right.
right.
Swank asks him, is like, is that when Jimmy the Snake?
Right. It was his famous.
She basically is like, that's from like, the whatever case. And he's like, yeah. And she's like, were they really hiding in the basement at 385 whatever street drive? And like, and he's like, yeah, that's how it happened.
So Swank comes in pretty soon.
Swank is what's her character's name? Detective Ellie Burr.
Right.
She's a cop nerd, like you say.
Right. I spent the whole movie trying to figure out who she reminds me of in this, and then I realized it's Kimmy Schmidt.
Sure, she's a little
There's
Kimmy
this
Schmidt.
very earnest, like, oh, gee whiz, let's solve the murder.
Well, right, and he's dispensing these like really hacky aphorisms where it's like, hey, misdemeanor, it's the same as murder one. People make the same mistakes. Like where I could be saying this. Like that sounds like something an old detective might like think.
It feels like Pacino wandered in from a shittier cop movie with shittier dialogue, and the rest of the movie is going like, wait a second, fucking take it down a notch, dude.
This movie definitely doesn't work quite as well if it doesn't have that like tiny little B plot of her just being like, oh, he's a little full of shit.
Yeah.
But then at the end being like, but I get it. I get that there's shades of gray.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
But it is like he's the outsider in the town, which is good because now we can like find this place through his eyes. But then also like she's the insider who knows this guy already. So like the outsider has some pre-existing reputation. So now there's just like two layers. Yeah, and it's what you can sort of latch onto.
And it's a nice way to drop in, your exposition. Because the only scene that feels clunky to me is that when they check into the hotel.
Yes.
And Pacino and Donovan have that conversation where Donovan's like, so I guess I have to talk to IA. And Pacino's like, about the case? Like,
that scene made no sense.
The scene is bizarre.
It was very like
weird.
20 minutes later, we were like, wait, do we have to rewatch that? Because it's not being addressed. But
they don't pay it off for like an hour.
But then when it does pay off, it's like, oh, okay, that's just
right. Finally,
you just waited to sort of fill us in on that. It's not that was a bad job. It's that it didn't matter until now.
It just has the one thing I really hate, only because I really care about what actors. I when people are about to eat in a movie, I get excited for the food they're gonna have.
Yeah,
and the thing where he's like, lost my appetite, and he stands up, and I'm like, no, you're definitely hungry. You were on a plane. Like I start to feel hungry for Al Pacino.
Well, look, I mean, if you love eating in movies. Pacino does the most active gum chewing I have ever seen in a film.
Love it, especially in that one montage where he's trying to fall asleep.
And he spits out the gum. Yeah. That's
oozing through his teeth. Can I offer one thing about the gum? Because he mentions it later.
Yeah,
he's talking to someone about it, and
about how it keeps you awake.
Yeah, which then never comes back into the movie. But I was very excited for the gum to be what, and this is a term I would love if people continue to use. To be what my wife and I call a blender as a character tick, which is named after Will Smith's Blender, An Enemy of the State, where a character in a movie from like 96 onward has one inexplicable thing as a screen. It's like a screenwriting term that never caught on.
Yeah.
But it's like, give him one thing that's their thing. And I don't know if you remember Enemy of the State. Will Smith, there's like a scene where he talks about how much he loves his blender. There's a scene where he asks his kids not to touch his blender. When the house is ransacked, the blender is destroyed or stolen. I don't remember what. And he's like, I don't know how you take a man's blender. And then I believe later in the movie, he gets a new blender. And then after we watch that, we watched Murder at 1600, where Wesley Snipes
I've never
is like,
seen that movie.
His blender is that he's painting like a little model village in the basement, like basically like a train set. And we were just like, oh, this is his blender. And now ever since that day that we watched both of those movies on 4th of July 3 years ago, anything like that in a movie,
That's a great term.
It's like, this is the blender. This is just like the extra thing that Pacino didn't have in the last cop movie.
Right.
But now he chews the gum. So now he has this one more character trait. And I was really excited to continue to track that. And it never comes back.
No, it doesn't.
It's not like he then uses the gum to like, wedge a door together or something.
No, it just gives him a lot of business to do in any scene where
maybe
he's
it's
listening
something
to
he brought. Like it's like how Brad Pitt's always eating a fucking sandwich in the Ocean's 11 movies. Like like where he was just like, I had an idea where
just
I
one
chew
more
gum.
thing, just like one extra thing.
Right, and Nolan's like, yeah, fine, chew gum. Like,
okay, wait.
I'm not going to fight you on that.
So let me ask you a question. I want to ask about like
maybe not. I don't know.
Blender classifications. What would qualify
this
as a blender?
Is
and what
going
would...
right in the blank check
no
lexicon.
Question.
I mean, that is
right there with flubber.
My greatest contribution.
Yeah, too much paprika on the sandwich. This is going into the term book. Will Smith in iRobot.
Is that the Converse?
His Converse.
Yes. Loves those Converse.
Right.
Yeah.
Would you say that counts as a blender, or because they later in the movie call out like, oh, he likes retro shit? Does that make it too clear to be a blender?
I feel like to me a blender can lift right out of the movie.
Right.
Like,
right.
Yeah, right.
It's something that like can be added in on like the polish a week before shooting, where it's just like, oh, we have an idea. This guy's always wearing Converse.
We just need a specific.
Yeah, we just need like something that he's doing. I mean, somewhere in my mind, I have dozens of other examples, but it's just whatever that is.
Sure.
But it can't. Yeah. So if you have any other questions about a specific example, I'll certainly do my best to see if I consider them blenders. But It's really in the eye of the beholder.
We're going to do a Devil Wears Prada episode, right? With your sister?
I think so.
At some point?
Yeah.
Because then I really, just remind me then to talk about, it has two of the most hurtful discarded meals in the history of movies. And that's another one that I really fixate on in terms of food not eaten.
Just to address that, we had like thrown out the joke idea of having our siblings on an episode, and then people started asking for that on Twitter, and then my sister weighed in.
Sure.
So now at some point on the books, we're going to do a Devil Wears Prada episode with my 19-year-old sister.
I assume, and I want to do my brother too. I assume we'll do SWAT. It just seems like the movie that we would want to do the most because we've watched it together so many times.
Yeah.
But I'll ask him if he wants, if there's something else he would think of. But SWAT to me just seems like the obvious. Anyway.
A thing I was going to say I like about Hilary Swank's character in this movie and how she functions is that because she is such a big fan of his and has studied him so much, it gives the movie this reason for her to pay such close attention to everything he's doing without being suspicious. So there's this constant tension of her asking him, why did you do that? What happened there? What's going on here? Without him feeling like he's under investigation. But he also knows he's not getting away with anything. Every detail is being picked up on by her.
All right, so let's continue the movie.
Yeah.
All right, so they're here. They're investigating this crime pretty quickly. Why is it they go to? Is it because, they find the bag?
They find the bag.
In this cabin.
Right. They go through the items, and then they go, here's what we should do. We should put the bag back. We should say big reward for whoever brings us the bag, if anyone knows where the bag is.
And he's like, it'll drive this killer crazy because the body has been scrubbed. He knows, like, this is someone who knows what he's doing in terms of crime scenes or whatever.
And he has that one moment of doubt where he goes, maybe we shouldn't do the bag.
I don't think that's a moment of doubt. That's him fucking, that's him trolling Martin Donovan.
You think so?
Yeah.
Maybe we should do it by the books
Donovan
this time?
And he's like, or I don't know. I mean, yeah, maybe it's a bad idea to like try and bait a criminal with some evidence. What do you think? And the guy's like, no, that sounds fine. You know, like he's trying to be like, I guess it sounds fine. Oh, I guess that's fine then. Let's do it.
See, I think that's what he's doing. Moment of like, it's performative doubt, but I think there is genuine doubt in him because he is starting to question everything now. I mean, as we figure out later in the movie, this sense he has of like his past catching up with him, you know, even if you're doing the wrong things for the right reasons. But they put the bag back there,
which is a little iffy. The rationale behind going back to that place is a little confusing.
Most definitely.
And this leads to this chase where they are kind of caught flat-footed because the guy they are chasing knows this whole terrain really well, where they're going, you know, he has an escape route out of this cabin they don't know about. Pacino's chasing him through the fog, this like shadowy figure.
Oh, and let's set up, at this point, they've interviewed Jonathan Jackson.
High school boyfriend.
The high school boyfriend.
Man, that guy's a real good teenager.
Randy Stetz.
He has a Pantera poster.
He's an asshole. He's a Pantera poster. He lights a cigarette during an interrogation with the LAPD.
Yeah.
I mean, like, he's got some balls for an Alaskan.
He's got some rude toot.
Yeah, he's got a rude toot.
He's got a rude toot. And
but Pacino's kind of into it, I think.
He loves fucking with it.
Yeah, exactly.
Because he gets to be like movie star cop with this kid, right? But this kid's just like such a fucking like unqualified piece of shit where it's like, okay, he's physically abusive to her.
Sure, right.
He's shitty to them.
He's an obvious stool pigeon,
right?
As we eventually,
and you can tell they wish it was him, but it very quickly becomes clear it isn't. There's
she
another
knows, like, this guy didn't do anything. This guy hasn't killed anyone. Essentially, is what he's realizing.
So he starts mocking the guy for the fact that his girlfriend was sleeping with someone else. He presumes,
right?
But they realize that's the sort of turning point. There's some other guy that she's been seeing. And if they can figure out who
she has
is,
like fancy gifts that obviously someone was buying.
Pacino picks that dress up and he knows exactly what it costs.
This is designer. Yeah. This is designer.
Yeah. The clip nails. He understands women's fashion in this movie. So they're on this foot chase and they think
maybe we could do like a prequel to Insomnia that's about him on the case of like some fashion murder in like Malibu.
What if it's a prequel?
It's called like Malibu Nights. I don't know.
I was going to say it's a prequel to Insomnia, but also a sequel to Devil Wears Prada.
Insomnia, Malibu. Like the Malibu's
Port of
in like
Call
pink
Malibu?
script. Yeah, exactly.
So they think they know like exactly the basic type of who this suspect is. The person who killed her is whoever this other older guy she was seeing was who bought these presents for her. So we're going to leave the bag there, and this will show us this guy.
Yeah, so there's this chase in the fog, which I think we all agree is a very well-executed set piece.
Yeah. And really, like, actually starts the plot of the movie. Because up until that point, it's like a cold case murder. Like the murder happened long enough ago that there's nothing. It's not like
long enough ago that these LA cops have flown all the way up.
This is like the actual incident that like 40 minutes into the movie or half an hour becomes the thing that the rest of the movie is actually about.
Right. And Joanna was like, he shot his, like, you know, you realize like, this is the actual plot.
And at this point, he's had one night where he didn't sleep very well. You know, he goes, why don't we go to school and interrogate the guy? They go, it's 10:30. No, let's go.
I don't even think he says I know. He's just like, yeah.
He's good.
Like he's super
really
excited.
Good.
He's good. He's really good in those
really
scenes because
does he say you got it when they say it's 10? He says some like very casual. He's like, you got it.
Yeah,
it's 10, and that's a good way to set that up. It's really, and up until that point, that element hasn't really been announced either.
Yes,
it hasn't been like when they're landing, they're like, it's always day here.
Right.
They wait until they're already in it to be like, oh, the sun never sets.
The original does that literally. The plane lands and in the car ride, they're like, it's so weird that it's always day here.
Yeah, well, that's a good move.
Yeah.
Moving it a little bit later.
100%. Because at first you just think, okay, this is daytime investigation. He's had
one
night.
It's a nice little little twist.
You've had one night where he doesn't sleep very well, but he's a cop. He's missed sleep some nights. So like, that's not really an issue yet.
Okay. So
and then in the fog, he fires his gun.
And he fires his gun. Now, the figure he's chasing is fired at them. So he has reason, I think, to be alarmed.
Shoots another cop in the leg, right? Yeah.
Shoots another cop in the leg, right. One of the sort of Twin Peaks cops who's like, oh, I don't know, beach, like, I've never seen a murder before. And then, he shoots his partner, Martin Donovan. Hap. And has enough of, like, Martin Donovan takes long enough to die to be angry at Al Pacino and suspicious that he shot him for a reason.
Martin Donovan gives good death in this movie.
A nice little death.
Very good death. But he's starting to realize, like, did you mean to do that? Why do you do that, Hap? Why do you do or Dormer? Why do you do it? He's starting to question if Dormer was trying to silence him. And Dormer's very, no, I thought it was him. Dies in his arms.
And also, like, the audience, you don't really know that it's not him. It's not like the audience has any clue who this is.
You're on Will's side, I would say, right?
100%.
Like, it's more like by the end of the movie where he says, like,
I don't even
know if I meant to.
Yeah.
I feel like we still basically know, but we just understand why he's
It's a great touch on that. I feel like a lesser movie would keep him alive and kind of have him like really try to tighten the noose on Pacino.
Right.
And also a lesser movie would like 100% make Hilary Swank his new partner.
Yes.
Whereas in fact, she sort of just like is also on the force.
Because she's now assigned to the case to figure out.
There's these sort of murmurs that like, that she, from her, that like she's sort of treated as the junior cop.
She's on the new case.
She only does misdemeanors.
She's on the new case.
She's on the foggy shooting.
She gets put on the foggy shooting, and it's like Paul Dooley's like, just write it up. Doesn't have to be Shakespeare or whatever. Where you're like, he doesn't really want her to.
And there's that great moment I love in the scene where they're all having beers after they think they've solved the case, and Nicky Cat makes the like, hey, what has two thumbs and loves blowjobs? This guy, and everyone laughs, and then you see him just nudge her out of frame, and he goes like, hey, sorry. Like, she's not even in the shot for the reaction.
For sure.
And it's just like, she's with all these guys who are making fun of her all the time.
I didn't know the two thumbs gag went back this far. I don't think I heard it.
Before?
I must have heard it when I saw this movie, but then I don't know if I heard it again until 2007 or 8.
This guy.
I feel like the first time I ever heard it, there's some movie where someone applies it to taking a shit.
Okay.
Where they go, what has two thumbs and just took a stinky shit? This guy.
Great. Thank you for that. But no, so she's on the
I think that was in the
case.
King's Speech.
It was in the King's Speech. That's the one. That's the one. I was trying to remember what it was. It was the King's Speech.
Just about the king, yeah.
Tom Hooper loves doing the this guy joke.
Did he make... No, the last movie he made was The Danish Girl, right?
Correct.
He doesn't have a new movie.
I'm sure.
Anyways. I don't know why I just...
he directed Cars 3. That's what it is. Tom Hooper directed Cars 3.
So Tom Hooper, it doesn't matter. So Pacino is still on,
on the hunt.
On the hunt for this guy who is now being charged with 2 murders, essentially.
But also, first he sort of confesses that he killed Hap to Paul Dooley.
Right.
And he's like, don't worry about it.
Yeah.
And then when Hilary Swank comes in, he's like, just give this guy an extra couple of volts to fry with.
Yeah,
because he killed this cop now as well.
Yeah.
And it's really not clear. I mean, that seems, I guess, like their old friendship. But it is sort of an interesting...
Dooley just doesn't press him on it at all.
He confesses it basically right away. He's like, I accidentally shot him.
I almost take it as Dooley doesn't even process it.
Yeah,
like,
it's
just like he hears what he wants to hear.
Yeah, because he's basically saying it's my fault, and Dooley's like, don't worry about it. I mean... I just like, we should just, because Swank is not really doing it's just little bits of investigation. But the moment where she just comes to Will and she's like, anyway, here's the case. We figured that guy did it. Could he just sign? And he has the chance to exonerate himself.
Yeah.
And he wants her to find him guilty. He's like, no, you really want to, don't just put your, spit shine on it. You really want to dig into this case. Every case matters or whatever, right? I think that's important.
Also a good scene when he calls the guy's wife. And he's like, hey, it's
good
me.
scene.
He's gone.
Because it's not too silly or soapy.
There's a lot of
or
talking on the phone in this movie. There's a lot of long phone calls where you can't really hear the person on the other end.
Yeah, and you can tell because the daughter answers, he knows who the daughter is. He knows the wife by her first name.
Right.
These are real people to him.
Because at first when the scene starts, I thought, oh, he's calling his wife and kids, which then kind of underlines this guy might not have anybody. He might be this weird swaggering LA cop who just goes home alone.
Yeah, right.
There's all the other phone business with what turns out to be Robin Williams. There's a lot of Pacino talking on the phone in this movie.
And good talking on the phone because
really
it's him being oh yeah, having to sort of answer non-committally in public on the phone to this guy who's I saw you kill your partner.
And in super tight one-ers.
Mm-hmm.
It's playing out in full pretty much.
So but that's the thing. He quickly figures out pretty much right after this, oh, she has these crime novels.
Right.
The boyfriend, this guy's a local.
He interrogates her best friend.
He interrogates her best friend.
Pacino's trying to fuck her.
That's one of the only times he goes a little more full Pacino.
He goes
where
full
he's
Pacino
a pile of garbage,
Yes, trash.
He loves talking about the pile of garbage.
And he also drives in front of a moving truck.
Yeah, he does to fuck with her.
Just to freak her out.
I'd say letting Pacino stand next to a pile of garbage is a really bad choice as a director because it's essentially a pile of props for him to do business with.
Garbage!
He wears a hat.
She's a good teen, too. Both of these teens are good because they are obviously traumatized, but they are reacting by being annoying teenagers rather than, sobbing and wailing or what, right? She's an asshole.
He goes to the memorial service. He sees the shitty boyfriend put his arm around the best friend and realizes the two of them are sleeping together.
Sure. And she's like, yeah, but she had her, Finchy.
Yeah, who cares?
I mean, it was whatever the character's
She
name
hated
is.
him. Yeah.
But she says, I don't know who he was. She'd never told me his real name. And then somehow he just intuits.
What's the nickname? What's the nickname?
There was it's either maybe the mysteries are called by whatever name she used. I forget. It's
That's what it is. It's the character, the lead character in his mystery series has the same last name as the nickname.
Right.
That's whatever his name is, Nobby or whatever.
And he goes through the box. He finds out who it is. So he essentially solves the murder there.
45 minutes into the movie.
Right. Now, Robin Williams speaks his first lines 47 minutes into the movie. He appears on screen 58 minutes in. It's a 2-hour movie.
Rules.
Yeah, it's good. So, he calls him at the hotel and is saying oh yeah, it sure sucks up here. It's hard to go to sleep. You put your clock in the drawer. I like that he put his clock in the drawer.
Yeah.
And then he calls him again before they've met. Right? He calls him twice before they meet.
Twice.
And at the same time, Pacino's doing his little business where he gets the other gun and he shoots the dead dog.
Right,
and digs the bullet out.
Yeah,
there's a lot of shoe leather on the forensics and the ballistics report.
Yeah,
he's working hard to fabricate it, and the dog thing is introduced earlier. We see that
he has seen this dead dog.
Yeah,
but I do like that. Yeah, the shoe leather because there's that thing where he says to the mortician did you recognize what kind of bullet it is, and she was just I don't know, a small one. We never see those here. Everyone just has rifles.
Right. It's because he's
so she
chasing.
Doesn't know the difference between a 38 and a 45 on site or whatever.
Yeah. Well, it's very complex, but it tracks perfectly. He's chasing during this shootout. His gun stops working or runs out of bullets.
Right.
Pulls another gun out.
Right.
That's what he kills his partner with.
Yeah, his backup gun.
Then they pull that bullet out, which obviously is a special gun that only he has.
Right, special cop gun.
Later he sort of backtracks.
But he also finds this old revolver.
He does find the other gun.
Yes,
so then he's trying to just make it seem like this mystery gun that they found. It's good. It all works perfectly.
No, it's nice. Right.
Shooting it into a dog and then cutting it out is a very strange way to go about getting a discharged bullet, but he does it and then he just has it in his pocket until the final scene of the movie.
Well, it's this thing I love, the counterpoint between the two characters is that Pacino's such a good detective. He knows exactly what any other detective would look for. So he's able to cover his tracks and fake it really well and be comprehensive. And Robin Williams, because he's this shitty middling crime novelist, thinks that he has the same level of mind for this kind of thing.
That's the best thing about it to me.
Love it.
Is that Robin Williams is coming into this being like, this is a cat and mouse, his character.
Right. He thinks he's got this one
right,
figured
exactly.
out.
Like, I understand cops. I know what cops are like because I saw a cop when I was a kid. And he was wearing a nice uniform. So now I love cops.
And the thing that irks Pacino most is anytime Robin Williams tries to imply that they're the same type of guy.
Right,
whether
right.
it's because they have the same understanding
He's
of
trying
crime,
to do like Heat,
because
right?
they
Like,
both murdered people.
we're not so different, you and I.
Right, like he's saying like it's finally the two greats have come head to head.
Right.
And Pacino keeps on going like, you suck.
That's where the line that you read earlier comes in.
You're like a clogged toilet. Yeah.
But he
on
like,
the ferry.
So he like tries to, you sort of get the sense that he's like planning on planting this gun that he now has like implicated,
right,
or something.
Yeah, he not only solves the crime, he solves his own like
how to cover it up.
Cover up an hour into the movie,
but
right?
Then, so then there's the great chase where Robin Williams comes home right when he's there.
Yes, and then he chases him, and that's the log.
This log,
yeah.
And it is
river
cool.
Chase thing.
The first time you see Robin Williams' face in the movie, aside
talk,
from
right.
there's the photo that he finds, and you got this clear shot of what just looks like Robin Williams in Hook or whatever. It's like him smiling in front of a river. And then there's the moment where Pacino's in the apartment, he hears the sound outside the door, and then just cuts to the shot of Robin Williams knowing that Pacino's there. And it's like, I feel like the way this movie deals with Robin Williams, both the character and also casting that huge of an actor as the killer, is like the opposite of what they do with Spacey in Seven, where like Spacey famously said, like, don't want to be in the poster, don't want to be in the trailer. I just won an Oscar. If they know I'm in the movie, they're going to know I'm the killer. So when he comes in an hour later, like the movie kind of like flips and you have no idea what's going on. And this movie, it's like the ad campaign was like Robin Williams versus Pacino.
Yeah, for sure.
His face is all over it.
A lot of his dialogue is in the trailer.
You know that Robin Williams is going to be the killer. There's no mystery there.
No, not really.
But the movie also doesn't, I mean, because it resolves it like at the 55-minute mark, the movie doesn't claim there is, which is neat. And also, direct descendant of Seven.
Yes.
Like for the voice on the phone, all
of that.
He thinks he's that cat and mouse.
Yeah. But that's the function I love is that
but
by
he's
the
not.
time
he had a crush on this girl.
Right.
He's a pathetic kind of guy, like in a way. And he beat her up because she laughed at him because she obviously knew he was a creep.
But he, the thing I love is that by the time he enters into the movie, you're going like, wait, so what is Robin Williams going to do in this movie? If it's an hour in, they've solved the case, then like he has to have a substantial part. And it's that he has backed him into this corner, hitting on all of Pacino's insecurities. I mean, obviously being a witness to the murder, but also making Pacino question his own sense of morality by how frequently he keeps on going, it's the same thing. You murder someone in a second,
Yeah, right.
I mean, this distinction Pacino keeps making is that
Pacino keeps saying like, you took 10 minutes to kill her. Like this was a real thought through process for you.
She's a lonely teenage girl. She reads these novels. She sees he lives in the town. She reaches out to him. He becomes a mentor figure to her. It's very clear that he was sexually attracted to her, but didn't act upon it. And then this one time he tries to kiss her, she laughs and he beats her to death. And he goes, it's like so bizarre how in one instance someone, life, which is the most precious thing, is also so fragile. And Pacino keeps on saying, like, it took 10 minutes. Like this wasn't some like spur of the moment mistake. But Williams keeps on claiming like it was a mistake. I didn't know I was killing her. I wasn't trying to kill her. So why don't bygones be bygones? We both killed people by accident.
This is a great. This is on the boat, right?
Yeah.
This
is their ferry.
It's like a 3-minute shot of the two of them.
Yep.
It's got to be maybe even longer than.
And then it cuts to because it starts out with like reverse shot of them sitting on the bench, and then when it goes to them on the pole, it's a 3-minute shot, and the only time they cut away from it is once to show the water, like their POV of the boat.
Right.
It's really, and then like now the movie's about. Now it's just like. We both killed these people and I have this tape recording of our conversation.
Right.
You're going to like help me get away with this or else I'm going to like.
And Williams' point, which is good, is just like this boyfriend fucking sucks. He's a shitty guy. He was beating her.
Yeah, Williams' thing is like, who cares if we pin it on this guy because he deserves to go to jail anyway and he could kill someone.
If you heard the things that I heard about him from her.
That boat stuff is great. That boat stuff is really like a simple killer, like midpoint of the movie, sort of like switching where the. Because at this point,
it's a total pivot.
You're like, I have no idea what the rest of this movie is going to be like. This guy's confessed.
Right.
The cop knows it all. Right. He's already planning evidence to like bust him, and you just don't know what happens next. It's pretty neat.
The rest of the movie is just his deterioration, right? Because you've got that scene where he tries to plant the gun, where he does plant the gun at Williams's house.
Right.
Then he goes to get it after their interrogation scene.
Yes.
And like that's him like melting down, right? Like where it's like, what are you even? What's even the goal at this point?
What are you trying to do? And Williams is fucking incredible in this movie.
It's a great performance.
I think it's probably my favorite like dramatic performance of his.
And it was in his serious year to give you, and we shouldn't go too deep, but he had done his 90s thing had run out so badly on him with Patch Adams and Bicentennial Man. I think people were so sick of
close out the decade.
Saccharin Williams, Jacob the Liar. Those are all like end of the century movies. And then so he doesn't do anything except the voice and AI for 3 years. And then this year he has 1 Hour Photo, Death to Smoochie, and Insomnia.
Yeah.
And I think 1 Hour Photo is an okay movie. I haven't seen it since it came out.
Death to Smoochie is a masterpiece.
I have never seen Death to Smoochie.
It's a masterpiece.
But 1 Hour Photo is really leading with Robin Williams is a creep, right? It's like a very manicured, very sort of strange
sterile,
and unsettling. Yeah.
Well, and I think a fundamental difference between that Williams performance, which I think is very good, and this one is in that one they were like, what if you took away everything audiences like about Robin Williams?
Sure, right.
So he's this weird, creepy, unnerving husk of a man.
And he looks weird. We dye his hair. We give him weird contacts. He looks like a weirdo.
This movie...
Child molester glasses.
Yeah. This movie, Robin Williams uses all the Robin Williams tricks. He's not doing the riffing, but the thing that I love so much about those scenes on the boat...
His voice, man.
He's doing
got
the
a great voice.
They make it look like him.
So he never did any animated movies.
Yeah, he would have been so good in a cartoon.
Yeah, I know. You're right. I didn't even put that together.
Yeah.
He's really sad looking in this movie.
Very sad, but
he's so well cast.
His character smiles a lot when he's talking, and they don't play it as this
smile thing,
this Richard T. Joker thing where it's sadistic that he's smiling. They play it as he thinks he's a lot more charming than he is.
Right.
This character thinks.
But also, you're in this tiny town where you can imagine how he would inflate his opinion of himself.
This character thinks he's Robin Williams in Dead Poets Society. He thinks he's this very genial, kind, and he keeps on reasserting that the relationship he had with the girl wasn't sexual.
He calls himself her mentor during the interrogation scene where they do bring him in is really, I thought it was kind of like The Master, where it's just actually two great actors just across the desk from each other for minutes on end. Yeah. And you're just like, well, this is kind of great.
And you're watching Pacino, because I think what Nolan knows that you want from that scene is okay, here's Pacino's going to deconstruct him. This will be the scene where Pacino just destroys this guy.
We have two great actors. The movie has told you exactly what's going on with both of them. And now here's a scene where both of them have to play people pretending to be different people.
And they both have these very specific agendas. Williams is trying to pin the crime on the teenager, on what's his name?
But it's actors
Pacino's
playing
trying
characters
to catch him
acting.
in a lie.
Right.
And of course, halfway through, Williams is revealing, I know that you planted a gun in my house, so there's that. But I love, you see Pacino, he's like, well, what if I tried this approach? He does that for 5 seconds. He's like, maybe not. Then he tries a new thing. It is a nice set piece. It's probably the best set piece of the movie. Yeah. In a weird, in a sort of, in terms of them matching wits.
It's exactly what the Joker Batman interrogation later is to me.
Yes.
Watching that, I was like, this just feels like he'd figured out how to put two gigantic characters in a room and just be like, this is cinema.
And it's the same thing.
Guys sitting
it's
here.
The same thing in The Dark Knight where you're like, Batman's going to deal with this. And again, a minute in, Batman's realizing, shit, I don't actually have the way to figure this guy out. I can't deconstruct the Joker.
It is pretty fascinating to me that, you saying the thing about putting two guys in a room, making it feel epic. It struck me while watching this. That really is kind of what Nolan's best at. Is he's better at filming two people in a room than anyone else.
He's good at it.
Just in terms of casting the right actors, writing the right scenes, putting them in there, how to shoot it, the using the environment, all of that. He makes conversations feel very ominous or exciting or unnerving or these epic philosophical debates or whatever they are. The detail I love in that scene is that on the boat, Williams is pitching him so here's what I'm going to do in the interrogation, and Pacino's you're overwriting it.
You
this
is too much.
That.
The cops are not going to buy this because it's too simple.
Too
you
much
need a little bit
on the
of
sandwich.
Too much paprika.
Right. So he says I'll pin it on the boyfriend, and he goes, you don't have to mention the boyfriend. Leave the boyfriend out of this.
Yeah, they'll get to the boyfriend.
They're not going to ask you. Don't give him anything you don't have to.
But then it works, and he's like Salieri. He's like, fuck, they actually do like the boyfriend.
Williams throws the boyfriend out there. He starts improvising.
And Nicky Katt's like, boyfriend. that the gun, that's definitely it.
And then you see Williams get cocky, like
Right.
he's like, well, maybe we are at the same level. Maybe
Right.
we're both masters of crime.
Right.
And then it becomes this like dick measuring contest between Williams and Pacino, where Pacino starts really laying into the sexuality of the relationship.
Yeah, that's where he's right.
Which
like,
for
you're
him,
pathetic. He's playing his final card.
he's just trying to
which is
embarrass
like,
him.
let me embarrass you in front
And
of these people.
He has that line on the boat where he says, "Did you ever touch her?" And he goes, "No." And he goes, "But now you wish you did, huh?"
Right.
I like in the interrogation when he's like, was she pretty? He's like, she was 17. He's like, was she pretty?
Yeah.
She was pretty. Come on.
Yeah, it's right. I mean, it's almost in Heat when he's big ass, but
Right.
it's not. I mean,
And you see Swank's kind of watching the scene being like, this feels like
yeah, no, that's
a little off the
Swank's
book.
definitely
Yeah.
like, right, this is loaded in a way I don't
Yeah.
understand. Whereas Nicky Katt's like, hey, the teenager, you mentioned the teenager, let's go get the teenager.
Pacino, Hilary Swank leans over to Nicky Katt and goes like, doesn't this kind of feel like the interrogation scene from Dark Knight? What's going on here?
This, like, from this part up
This movie's
through,
set in 2012.
Yeah,
obviously.
this part up through where she sort of pieces it together, which
Right.
is pretty soon thereafter.
Yeah, no, I mean, there's not much of the movie
just
left.
detective.
This scene sets her home to review her book report on him.
Exactly.
But like, this is where I'm sort of like, when you finally go into her house or where maybe that's her office, it's neat that the movie doesn't give her an internal life.
No.
Because like, she doesn't need one, but you also, I mean, it could benefit from her having like a husband and a kid, or
Sure.
like,
Yeah.
or
Yeah.
the opposite of that, some depressing apartment that she never lives in. But her sort of like function in the movie becomes very clear at this point,
Yeah.
where it wouldn't have mattered if she had a husband. What matters is that like she just sort of sits back and pieces this together.
Right. She is the
And,
sort of moral force in the
like,
movie.
there's this question that gets brought up about this gun that sets her off, which I thought was like a good callback to the business with the dog and the bullet.
Yeah,
and you realize that,
right.
like-
and there's that scene where she's arranging her coworkers to try and exactly restage the crime scene.
Yeah.
They're all like, "God, why do we have to do that?" And she's like, "No, on your
She
side."
also earlier, not having been mentioned yet, was like, hey, I looked at like the ballistics of that. Yeah, what you're talking about, where they're putting
Right.
everyone on the ground.
and it makes no sense.
She's
that
like,
you
the
were here.
shot came from
Yeah.
that direction. This doesn't really work. And he's like, oh, that's interesting.
Yeah. He's like, I guess I misremembered. There's
she's-
only two more scenes
Yeah.
that we need to talk about. I'm just trying to,
Yeah.
One is the thing where Pacino finally is like, you know what? I need to talk to Maura Tierney and like just lay out my immoral action as a police officer. Like the thing I'm in trouble for.
Because at this point, she's been good, but you're like, why cast Maura Tierney in this
Sure,
role?
sure.
There's that opening scene at the hotel when she kind of makes a nice impression. Then
There's
there's
a
the
couple
next day
scenes,
back
yeah.
when she kind of
She
says that
feels
thing
bad.
about it's weird he was standing
He
here
was
24
standing there.
hours ago.
And Pacino's like, he liked you.
Yeah, I hope I was nice to him. Right. And then this scene where he's freaking out and taping seat cushions to
Right,
the
right,
window.
right. And she
This
comes
scene
in and
was
she's
very
like-
much the trailer. I remember
Yes.
this scene
Yes.
being in the trailer quite a bit.
Yes. And he talks to her about, right, like I framed a guy I knew was guilty.
Says, hey, I got to
essentially.
complain about too much noise.
And he's
And he
like,
goes, it's,
Los Angeles, 1999.
nobody says it's too light in here. And she goes, it's really dark in
Right,
here.
and she turns on the light. That's a nice little trick.
Love it.
Yeah, and suddenly you're like, ah. Like,
Right.
Remember that, Ben? He's looking at me. Yeah, he remembers.
But he gives this speech that's the opening credit sequence, those close-up macro shots of the blood on the
which
fabric,
we've been seeing the whole time.
Right.
That shot of the blood spreading on the cuff.
Extreme insert shots were very popular at this point in time.
Yeah.
Like that.
Yeah. That's another Seven technique. I feel like Seven does a lot
Seven
of that.
pretty much
Yeah,
invented
right.
that.
But he-
Requiem for a Dream,
Yeah.
I
Yes.
think, perfected the art form.
But he does it a lot in Memento. That thing where
Correct.
he's having the memories of his wife's attack is, presented as those little flashes at first.
Oh, there's a moment I love in this when he's on the phone with Hap's wife.
Do you like my representation of the
It's
flashes,
great.
by the way?
For the listener, David is flashing his fingers.
And I
toward
dare,
my
I
face.
dare say that the rise in those flash blips came from switching editing from editing flat on a Steenbeck
Oh,
to
yeah.
editing. And like people were like, we can just put in a 3-frame shot.
Much
Right,
easier to
right,
just
right.
copy paste a thing.
It's like, oh,
Right.
wow, really? 3 frames? We
Yeah,
should
you
do
don't-
that all the time.
Yeah, exactly.
There's that moment when he's on the phone with Hap's wife, and she said, like, did he suffer?
And
And
you-
there's the
like,
quick
the-
3-second
yeah.
flash of Hap in his arms, like crying with the blood pouring
Oh,
out
and
of his
Hap,
mouth.
by the way, I wrote down the scar on his face looks exactly like the Joker's scar.
Ooh,
When Hap is
in
lying there in the
Glasgow.
ground, it's only
Yeah.
on one side.
Right.
I don't know if that's where he's meant to have been shot or he scratched his face while running, but it is a scar from his mouth almost all the way to his ear.
So maybe we do know how you got those scars.
Why so serious?
Richard T. Joker.
This is a callback to our following episode, Alex. All right.
It's not callback. I'm just referencing a character that's
Yes,
in one
Richard
of these
T.
movies,
Joker.
Richard T. Joker.
And then there is the final chase. I guess not even chase. No, it is. There's a bit of a chase.
The confession, the Pacino confession to Maura Tierney.
Well, right. No, yeah. Oh, yeah.
Is,
sure. We
is
weren't
that
done with that.
He
man framed a guy
who was fucking and then murdered a small child.
Yeah, it's
brutally.
like some horrible story where he hung the child
awful.
and the hanging didn't even work and he died of shock.
He knew the guy was guilty, but the case they didn't find the piece of evidence they needed. He tampered with the evidence. He put the blood on.
Lady Macbeth sort of stain on his cuff that he can't get out.
Is that a reference to Scotland, PA?
That's what it was.
Lady PA?
It was.
This is in the
Scotland.
Yeah.
But Maura Tierney kind of says, like, well, I'm no one to judge. The line about Alaska, I clearly ran away.
And that's the thing, right? Like, he's in purgatory.
But it's
and
sort
she's
of
like, I get it. Look,
it's
I'm
retroactively,
the hotel manager of purgatory.
Retroactively, it's like, oh, that's what they were talking about earlier. Like, had he testified, this guy who's definitely guilty would have been set free.
Right.
Pacino's been living with that. I guess that sort of pays off the conversation when they first arrive.
Yeah, because when he says that the name of whoever this guy is, he's like, what about that guy?
Yeah.
And Donovan's like, no, he won't get out. Don't worry about it. And Pacino knows that he will.
Well, it gets into a little bit of
overlap. I think the idea is that Donovan doesn't know that Pacino did this, but Pacino just knows if they dig, they'll figure it out.
For me, it's like it's much like David Dobkin's The Judge. And that,
oh, yeah, great.
The titular judge's big concern is that if people know that he's senile, then all his cases will be reviewed. Pacino cares a lot about legacy because he doesn't seem to have a home life. Yeah. His thing is that he's a great cop and that people look up to him. He knows that this case is the one that's going to crumble. But the big fear, and this is the thing that Williams says to him, is like, if they know you shot your partner, all your guys are going to be let out.
Yeah, no, for sure.
And he also, much like the judge, fears that he will poop his pants in a bathtub.
Correct.
It's true.
I mean, look, who has 2 thumbs and poops himself in a bathtub? I'm pointing to Robert Duvall right
now. The final set piece is Hilary Swank going to Robin Williams' cabin.
Correct.
Now, why does he want her? Is it just because he notices that? But he notices that she's seen the dress. Is that why he hits her?
Correct.
That's what it is.
But he calls her and invites her.
Yeah, because he's going to give her the letters that the
right.
murder victim sent him.
Right.
Which are like printed on Rainbow Station.
Yeah, they're on like Lisa Frank stationery.
Yeah.
But then she sees the girl's dress, which he's kept because he's a creepazoid.
Did I misread this? The implication that he wrote the letters to kind of help up his case? Because
I don't know. I didn't put that together.
In the interrogation,
it seems like there's something off about the letters.
Yeah, right. With the letters, are like, I just hate my boyfriend so much. He has a gun. Like,
there's that moment in the interrogation where he brings up the letters that say all these incriminating sort of things towards the boyfriend,
right?
And she goes like, "Do you have those letters?" Or Pacino goes, "Do you have those letters?" And he kind of like stares him down and goes, "Yes, I do."
Right.
Which feels like, okay. Here's this hack writer. He's gonna buy some Lisa Frank stationery and practice his cursive or whatever.
Right.
Then this final part is like 90% Silence of the Lambs feeling.
It gets very Silence of the Lambs.
But it's also kind of not in doubt. Like,
yes,
what's going to happen, which is they're going to shoot each other. But
also Pacino's driving and he's like falling. Like this is the end. Like he's so tired.
He swerves off the road.
Fucking tired.
He's beaten Williams's. Because there's been a scene before where he says to Robin Williams, like, I'm going to just confess. Like, fuck all of this. So they shoot each other. Robin Williams' death is phenomenal. The tip into the water and then
If at first there's that kind of badass moment where, like, Swank doesn't have her gun anymore. Pacino checks. He's like, I got 7 rounds. Make them count.
Yeah.
And he realizes the floorboards are really unstable.
Right, he goes down. And
so he kicks through and he treks through the water to sneak attack Robin Williams. They shoot each other at the same time. Robin Williams is like stunned because he has that moment where he goes wild card. He keeps on citing this thing, the wild card, like it's some fucking screenwriting trick. I got the tape recorder. You didn't think about this. I got the hidden gun. I'm gonna get the upper hand on you. And right when he's saying wild card, Pacino shoots him.
I mean, isn't the idea basically like on a good day, Pacino would have this guy signed, sealed, and delivered, no problem.
Question.
But he's just tired, so he's like 40%. And that's why Robin Williams can get a couple over on him.
And also this guy's making him doubt himself.
Yeah,
it's a movie about
confidence. He feels, and also he killed, right.
There's a crisis of confidence.
He killed Hap, so he's right. He has a moral crisis as well as a tiredness crisis.
And what he's saying to Maura Tierney in that scene about the tampered evidence is like, I just had a feeling someday it was going to catch up with me.
This movie would be hacky and bad with a different director. There's no question.
Yeah, one thing I wrote down, apropos of nothing, right?
Please.
I just wrote down Bone Collector. From this era of
yes, sir,
serial killer dramas that were like $30 to $50 million movies.
the Seven ripoffs, basically.
This is almost 10 years after coming up on a decade of Seven.
Right.
Younger female protege.
Yeah, with Kiss the Girls or Along Came a Spider as well. Those
Taking
movies.
Lives.
Taking Lives.
There's just like a huge amount of
Taking Lives.
I wrote Bone Collector and Taking Lives. I just wrote down with no commentary. But there's just like a lot. This kind of movie was very easy. And everyone in the marketing said the best thriller of its kind since Seven or Silence of the Lambs.
Right.
And then within 5 years, this has just migrated to television.
It's true. I mean, that's the thing. That's where it will stay for a while.
And with anyone other than him, this could have been,
Another
along came a spider.
Because I don't think the screenplay is fantastic. I don't think it's terrible or anything. But it's not like the dialogue really crackles. It's all fine.
Although, I mean, and who knows how much of this was in the script or how much of this was added by Nolan in the uncredited rewrite. But the original has a lot less of these sort of character connections.
Yeah.
These sort of thematic concerns. There isn't the investigation in the original Insomnia. There's not the same sense of a past history catching up with him. Mm-hmm. It really is just the fact that he killed his partner by accident.
Sure.
And the relationship is different. That guy's older. He's not as disgraced. The Hilary Swank character isn't someone who idolizes him. She's just a cop working a case. And this movie really kind of tightens everything and makes everything really kind of on theme.
Yeah, I like at the end where she sort of put together this thing about his extra gun. Yeah. She gives him a hug to see if he still has it.
Right.
Feels the gun.
Yes, that's right.
Then she sort of knows that he did it. And
when he's dying.
That's already happened when they go to Williams's house.
Right. When he's dying, she's saying, look, I get it. You didn't mean to do it. She has put it all together, and he's like, just let it.
I'm going to throw it away.
And he's like, don't do that. It's a bad idea. Don't lose your way. And then he doesn't say tired, baby, tired. That's what he says in Carlito's Way. He says, let me sleep, I think. Sleep. Right, yeah.
But it also,
it just works. You just feel, you're like, yeah, Jesus, go to sleep, man.
It's good. It's also a great end of story, end of movie movie.
Yeah, just directed by Christopher Nolan.
I was so nervous when that scene faded out that it was going to be like her and Nicky Cat being,
right.
Oh, whatever happened with that. And it's like a great thing that it just ends and then it ends.
And in the original, he doesn't die.
Oh, really?
The Hilary Swank character kind of calls his bluff and lets him get away with it, and he drives away.
Interesting.
And
I like this ending better.
Especially with the whole movie where he's trying to fucking go to sleep.
It's like Bridge of Spies.
Yeah.
Let him sleep.
Yeah, you promise one thing the whole time.
All right, let's
Chekhov's nap.
Let's play the box office game.
Ben has something he wants to say.
It's a good wet death.
It's a wet movie. Wet movie.
It is.
It's very wet. I mean, I like wet movies, but I would say this is up there as a wet death.
Robin Williams gets shot and then
takes a bath.
Takes a little swim.
I think that death is really effective.
It's good. He holds on it for a really long time. Well. That's like a very
he goes under and then he floats up a little bit.
Yeah, you're getting floating. It's got all the things I like.
Benny. Good boy.
Now play the box office game.
Before you do, can I just read a few?
Oh, please.
I love By the way, I love this game and I'm excited.
It's a good week.
Other notes that are noted. One is that this movie, I think, is a great case for helicopter shots being far superior to drone shots.
Yeah.
The endless amount of shots of the aerial views of this place are really beautiful. Mm-hmm. And obviously, drone shots would just look cheap and flimsy in a way that this movie doesn't.
And big thing Nolan and Pfister really committed to on this movie, they don't do second unit on anything.
Oh, really?
So any sort of establishing shots, they shot that themselves. And you can tell that there's meaning behind those helicopter shots. They're not just getting overhead.
Yeah, they're really nice and elegant. Right. Small point. Two, as I mentioned earlier, I like that this kind of parallel to Jackie Brown is you have this thing that's a breakout in one way or another. And then you do obviously Batman's pre-existing, but those are original stories. Then you do the remake or adaptation
of a crime movie.
It's an interesting thing as opposed to The Fountain where you're it's all me.
Right.
The
other brain on the page.
The other version of that is after Pulp Fiction is 4.5 hour long samurai movie. Instead, it's like
would be him doing Kill Bill right away.
Yeah, instead it's like from the writer of Get Shorty comes my next movie.
It's also like a very kind of auteurist thing to do, where you like, okay, start out with your fully original like thing,
and then smaller thing,
right? And then you're like, let me take someone else's material,
let me flex my muscles, let me show you what
how much my style is like built into my veins,
and work with some legends. Like, let me get in some big actors. Like, it's not going to be their greatest performances ever, but it's going to be a memorable little like.
It's like a solid decision that doesn't exist anymore because movies like this.
Right.
Like, but now after Memento, he would get the job directing a pilot of whatever this version is now.
Yeah, right. He would do that. He'd knock that out, and then he'd go make Batman or whatever.
But back in '97,
except it wouldn't be Batman. Now it would be like, the Atom or whatever, because they'd be like digging through. Like, what do we got? Like
he'd be making the Lobo movie.
Yeah, exactly.
In '97, you could go throw me an Elmore Leonard.
Right.
They'd throw you a paperback.
I like the trajectory of this in the career. The other thing,
it'd be nice if everyone could do an Elmore Leonard.
It'd be great. Everyone should do one Elmore Leonard.
So many of them.
And there's an Elmore Leonard series, an anthology a couple years ago, and there's some dreadful movies in it.
That's true.
So I think that ran its course.
Yeah.
Circa Be Cool.
Yeah. Poor Be Cool.
But
the Big Bounce in Be Cool really killed him.
Oh yeah, the Big Bounce. But the other we haven't talked about Hilary Swank, but like what a strange,
crazy trajectory.
Like she's like 32 in this movie. And no, she's 32 when she wins her second Oscar.
She's 28 in this movie.
And has
I
an
looked
Oscar.
it up because she wins Boys Don't Cry 25.
That's right. She's 28. She was
so
born in 74.
by the time she's like 32, she has 2 Oscars. This movie's like a great sort of like step away from that, where it's like in a supporting cast, you get to work with Pacino, and then like 2 years later, $1 Million Baby.
2 years later.
Yeah.
Anyway, the only thing I did look up last night, I was like, what is the deal with Hilary Swank's complete career?
Yeah,
because this movie raises a lot of questions because she's so interesting and good all the time.
Yeah,
she is.
And then like just has not done a lot.
They didn't know how to use her in between the 2 Oscars. I mean, it was this weird like. There's Affair of the Necklace where it was like maybe,
Affair of the Necklace, which is them trying to cast her as more of a traditional romantic lead in like a costume drama that flops. It's a bad movie.
She's in The Gift, but that's a very small role.
It's a small
role.
A
good movie, I think.
Yeah, I like The Gift.
The Gift's a good movie.
Yeah.
And then after this, she does The Core, which is, I guess, like, hey, well, let's put you in a big blockbuster.
Right.
That's a terrible movie. I mean, that's not on anybody.
No favors.
And then after that, $1 Million Baby. So she wins, but I really think that win was
like
so bad.
But
for
she's
her
like
career.
32 or 30, not even 33 now, right? She's like.
She was 32 when she won the second one. Yeah.
Right, yeah. Because she's now in her 40s.
But she got stuck
now,
in like another lane because she's a very good actress, but she's like not a movie star. Like there's not like when they tried to put her in blockbusters or romantic comedies, there wasn't like a personality there that kind of translated across it.
Yeah, she's a femme fatale in The Black Dahlia.
Which doesn't fit. She's
an
like non-ingenue.
teacher. She's not really. She's an inspirational teacher in Freedom Writers, which was sort of like not a bad idea, but I think the moment had passed for those kinds of movies, and it's a bad movie. I mean, she gets a lot of bad scripts. I mean, she's in Amelia, which is this just... Have either of you seen Mira Nayer's Amelia?
No.
It's a horrendous movie.
I remember everyone being like, oh, here comes their third Oscar.
It's nobody's... I don't know whose fault that movie was. It's a horribly written movie, probably. But I guess that's the kind of role that you would expect, like, an actor of her stature to be angling for.
But after that, there's nothing really.
Nothing. I mean, she did
Conviction, and then she's in like nothing. She's in New Year's Eve, and she's in The Homesman, which she's excellent in, and it's an excellent little movie, the Tommy Lee Jones movie. But obviously, that goes nowhere now. This year, she's in Logan Lucky. I don't know how big her role is, but I'm excited.
She looks really good in that. Though.
And then next year, she's got a TV show coming.
I was gonna say. I mean, she seems like the person who's primed to have a TV show.
It's weird to have someone who has 2 Oscars and is 40 be perfect for a TV show.
I know. It's very bizarre.
But also, like, those kinds, like, all of her kinds of movies are what don't get made. Like, the kinds of movies that elevate someone who's, like, very classically pretty in a way and also, like, very classically tough in, like, a womanly way. Like, whatever that character needs doesn't, like, she would just be on, like, True Detective now.
She's very contradictory, and the person she's kind of closest to is, like, Jodie Foster. But Jodie Foster fit into a more typical movie star mode because she found her sort of footing in genre work and stuff like that. Yeah. And it felt like she had a lot more kind of creative, like, say in her stuff.
I know, Ben. I know. Okay, all right.
Sorry,
all right.
I couldn't
let
the Hilary Swank confusion go without being.
She's great in this movie. I think it's the best of her non-Oscar winning performances.
She's good. It's just it is an example of the kind of slightly undercooked roles they handed her sometimes. But she's very good in the movie. But I want to play the box office game. As we noted, this film came out Memorial Day weekend, 2002, May 24th.
Yeah.
So it was a 4-day weekend. and it opened number 3 to $26 million on a $46 million budget. It makes 67 domestic, 113 worldwide.
Which
So
would be like 100
healthy.
million today. It would be...
I don't know about that. Let's see. You're usually good at that.
I think 67, 15 years ago would be like
$102 million.
There we go.
He's so good at that. It's weird.
Spent a lot of time on this website.
What was the number 1 movie at the box office Memorial Day weekend 2002? It has been out. It's in its second week.
It would be Star Wars Episode 2, Attack of the Clones, right?
There you go.
Yeah.
Which has dropped only 25%.
Still the lowest grossing of all the Star Wars movies.
But it's now made $201 million.
Okay.
Number 2
is Spider-Man.
See,
In terms of my love of box office game, I was disappointed when I saw when this movie came out because I knew that those 2 movies were just still around.
Running the table.
Spider-Man
Yeah.
had changed the game. We were all hyped for Star Wars, and then Spider-Man had come 2 weeks before it and had that $114 million opening weekend.
Historic.
And everyone was like, shit.
This was
Yeah.
also the end of my senior year of high school and one of the happiest times of my life.
That's great to know. I mean, I was 16. I saw it in theaters. Did you see it in theaters?
Insomnia?
Yeah.
I think I did. I think I saw it a couple years later on DVD, but this was also one of the happiest times of my life. I would say.
Oh, God, I was so glad to hear it.
Life was so good.
It felt
I
really
was
good in
doing fine.
2002.
Like I was about to graduate,
Yeah.
got out of my
in the shadow of 9/11.
got to skip. 9/11 was in the past. We were moving forward as
George
a country.
Bush's president.
They were finally releasing Collateral Damage and the
Yeah.
remake of Big Trouble for
Right.
the second Big Trouble reference today.
We're gearing up for war in Iraq.
Yeah.
Great time.
Great time.
No,
Everything was
I know.
perfect.
And then Insomnia is number 3. Number 4.
Okay.
You got any idea? It's another new movie. The rest of the movies are new movies.
Oh, interesting. 3 new releases. Okay. Number 4. Is it live action or animated?
Animated.
From 2002?
Correct.
Spirit Stallion the Cimmerian?
Cimarron, I believe. but
Okay,
yes.
I've never known how to pronounce that.
Yeah, the horse movie with Matt Damon.
Stallion, the Cimmerian of the Spirit?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Cimarron, Spirit of the Stallion.
Cool.
The joke is you can rearrange it in any order.
Those
I
words
believe
don't
we've
mean
done that
anything.
joke
You
on
could've-
this podcast before. Kelly Asbury joint.
Oh, yes. The great
Yeah.
Kelly Asbury.
Number 5
Okay.
is like an R-rated, tough, hard-hitting drama, but it's also a revenge movie. It's a terrible movie that I saw in theaters. Anyone? What's like
It's a revenge movie?
yeah. Mm-hmm.
Is it led by a star? Is it like a star
led by
vehicle?
a star, and its title is like the end of the tagline.
Oh, enough?
Enough. Interesting.
Enough. The J-Lo joint.
Enough.
Is that a Michael Apted? Yes,
I believe
Michael
it was
Apted,
Michael Apted.
which made $40 million domestic. It was kind of the tail end of J-Lo, I think, as a star of like, because she made like a few dramas in a row. Because The Cell
Yes.
is before
But then Made in
then.
Manhattan comes out later that year
Made
and
in
is
Manhattan
huge. And then
is
everyone's
no
like,
drama.
wait, maybe we undervalued her and then
And then Geely is the next
Yeah,
year.
right.
But no, yeah, because it had been The Cell, Angel Eyes, and Enough come out,
Yeah,
and they're
that's a
all
bad run.
flops.
What's,
yeah.
what's the rest of what else is out there?
We got About a Boy,
Mhm.
which is a movie I thought was very overrated living in Britain, but was like one of those British hits
sure.
that Britain was very proud that had
Yeah.
done so well. It gets Oscar nominations
I'm a
and
big
stuff.
fan
What do
of
you
that
guys think
movie.
of About a Boy?
rewatched it a couple years ago. I thought it was pretty good.
I like it a lot.
It held
Yeah.
up pretty well for me.
Fine.
All the performances in it are really good.
I
Toni
haven't
Collette's
seen
amazing in that movie.
I haven't. Yeah, she's usually good. When's Toni Collette bad?
Never.
Unfaithful. These kinds of movies that don't, like that's a sex thriller.
These are all
like,
summer movies.
and there's summer movies. It's so
A
crazy.
lot of like adult dramas in the top 10.
And it's also crazy to think that Diane Lane gets an Oscar nomination off Unfaithful, which had come out in fucking April or
Yeah.
whatever. Like
Yeah,
that's
pretty much. Pretty crazy.
and I wanted to say Robin Williams should have gotten an Oscar nomination,
100%.
and like I think that 1 Hour Photo kind
kind
of
of
fucked
diluted
it
it.
up for him.
Yeah.
The New Guy. It's a DJ Qualls
Oh,
comedy.
wow.
Do not remember
Yes.
it.
One of those
Yeah.
DJ Qualls vehicles.
A Zero Will Rise. That was the tagline.
Yes.
Do you remember this movie?
Yeah, ever so vaguely.
I
I mean,
guess
just as a sort of
American
byproduct
Pie
of the
imitator.
Qualls dynasty.
Because Road Trip is 2000. Is that
Right.
right?
Then they made White Qual.
yeah, White Qual. The prequel to White
Qual
Squall.
of the Wild. That was,
You don't really need to qualify DJ Qualls.
You don't need to qualify it.
Well done.
Unqualified.
Changing Lanes. That's another
Yeah.
in the summer.
A Roger Michelle picture.
That's a good movie.
That's a good movie.
When I was at NYU, I took a producing class from the guy who was either like the line producer or the production coordinator of that movie.
Uh-huh.
And every week the class was just him telling stories about Changing Lanes and how the movie got made and how budgets on movies like that happen. And
good New York movie.
It made 66 mil, solid. No one remembers that movie exists.
I saw it with my mom.
I saw it in theaters.
We had a nice time.
Number 10, The Scorpion King.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So
back in the news.
Yeah, exactly.
He's very topical.
Would have been great if the Mummy had ended, the new Mummy had ended with the Scorpion King being back. That was the actual reveal. My Big Fat Greek Wedding is just starting its run.
Okay.
It's in number 11. It's been out for 6 weeks. It's only made $7 million.
Oh, so it'll probably end up around 10 or 12. Right?
Yeah, so it's sort of spinning up its wheels, you know? The Rookie, which was another like word of mouth hit from that year. Y Tu Mama Tambien is still hanging around.
These are like grown-up movies.
Monsters, Inc. is in its 30th week at the box
grown-up
office.
movies. Good, smart movies for grown-ups like Monsters,
Murder by
Inc.
Numbers, which is another... Another
Did
of
I say
those.
that? Or
No, you said Taking Lives, but Murder by Numbers is totally another one of those.
That's Barbara Schroeder. That's with
Barbara Schroeder.
Right.
And Michael Pitt, isn't it? Right.
And Ryan
it's sort of like
Gosling.
another
Ryan Gosling,
rope.
right.
Because Gosling and Bullock dated for a while off of that movie.
Weird. Some other new movies. 13 Conversations About One Thing.
Mm-hmm.
Roman Coppola's CQ. That was Roman Coppola, right?
Yeah, that was. Yeah.
That's the box office game, guys. Yeah.
Fascinating. Different time.
All right.
Well, that's Insomnia.
got.
It's a movie I love. And it's like an interesting, kind of like sliding doors. Like, imagine if he just kept making movies like this for the rest of his career.
I mean, that's like the fun thing with directors, where it's just like, imagine if this is what, like at this point,
he could have made more.
He could have just been like a Fincher, who's
and it
just
would have
like
been a great career.
Yes.
I do like these genre movies. I elevate them. I have fun.
Right.
I only do R-rated movies.
I love like technical craft of filmmaking, and I just kind of like look at whatever scripts I can, and I do my own. But like,
and it's about partnerships with actors first and foremost.
And that just went away for Nolan, and then he became, an empire unto himself.
Does he seem like a happy man when you met him?
He seems happy.
He seems like satisfied with
I mean,
how
he's
going.
someone who, as a artist and a film professional, can like literally change the way the world in front of him is by snapping his fingers.
Which
I think would like how many other filmmakers get like a blank check for the way their movies are distributed?
Yeah,
it's
like
awesome.
2. Like it's just him and Tarantino and Paul Thomas Anderson that are like, I think my movie should come out this way, and everyone's like, okay,
well, you say so. I mean, everyone will be into that.
If you think we should release it a few days early so that people who live near a 35 millimeter projector can see your movie, that sounds like a great idea.
Right.
And his movies make so much fucking money. Like Tarantino is like hit and miss. Paul Thomas Anderson's always been like his niche audience, but like Nolan has the same level.
Do you think Dunkirk's going to make money?
I do.
Yes,
I think so too. I think people are ready for a war movie.
If it's good, it's going to be huge.
Yeah.
And even if it's only okay, it'll still do way...
Yeah, because the fact that Interstellar made the amount that it did is pretty nuts when you watch Interstellar.
Right.
But
Dunkirk is a cool movie to be releasing in July. Like that's what you're talking
We're
about.
saying
it's ballsy.
It's like Saving Private Ryan,
which came out in
July. It's the last
July.
time that there's been something like that.
I feel like it could easily make about that much money.
Yeah.
If it's good, I think it will. Yeah.
We will see. We'll know by the time we get to Dunkirk, I think.
Yeah.
Alex, thank you for being
here.
here.
Thank you guys so much. It's such an honor.
Will you come back?
Nothing would make me happier.
Good guess, right?
Great guess.
Hell of a guess.
It was so exciting.
Stepping through the looking glass here. But also, I didn't make any of my 30 Days of Night references that I wanted to make as a prequel.
Fuck! I was going to do that too!
As a prequel or sequel to this movie.
I get it. Right.
Glad I remember that.
Griffin's really bummed.
I had a bunch of them locked and loaded.
We'll do it now, like one of those YouTube videos of like where the fireworks all go off at the same time by mistake.
But also do them and it just slowly fades out.
Yeah, right.
They do.
It could be your end finally.
They do in the original. There's like, he's like, is it light here all the time? To his partner, Stellan Skarsgård says like, is it day here all the time? And they go, no, in the winters it's night all the time. And then I was like, oh, wait a second.
Hey.
Wait a second.
David Slade.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for being on here.
Guys,
People
really,
should watch all of your
exciting.
movies. I'm excited to see Golden Exits when it comes
Very
out.
excited to see Golden Exits. When can I see it? TBD.
Yeah.
It's in the works.
You live in New York. It's playing at BAM next week.
Well,
really?
Right. Well, like CinemaFest, right?
This will have,
okay.
That won't help anyone listening.
Sure.
Probably will have aired right after.
This will come out a week after that happens,
Yeah,
I
that
think.
sounds
Well, it was fun. It was a fun screening.
Good crowd?
Great crowd. Hometown.
Yeah. Rooting for you.
But yeah, your movies are pretty available on the online
Great
streaming
movies.
platforms.
Watch them all,
they're all on
guys.
the
You have a great filmography.
iTunes and Amazon, I suppose.
So someday there'll be people doing a podcast miniseries on the films of Alex Russell.
Oh, we should all be so lucky.
Alex,
We should all be so lucky as to live in a world where filmmakers in my generation will ever get these opportunities.
Yeah, that's the question.
Alpod, Ross, Pearcast. I don't
Yeah,
know.
that'll be
You
the
gotta
name of the
think about it.
miniseries. Our children will host it, David.
Yeah, that's right. David and Griffin Jr.
And Ben's dog will produce it.
Or you'll just be Futurama heads.
We'll be hits in a jar.
Very
all right,
possible.
let's wrap it.
Okay.
Griff.
Thank you all for listening. Please remember to rate, review, subscribe. Check out reddit.blinkies.com for some real nerdy shit that people are doing on a weekly basis. Big thanks to Ange Vergudo for running our social media. Of
Lane
course,
Montgomery.
Pat Reynolds and Joe Bowen for artwork. Lane Montgomery for the theme song. And as always, oh God, these vampires here.
Good.
This jail cell.
What?
It's a night here all the time. Gotta fight these vampires.